Everyone figured I was a goner stepping up to this boss, right until I sliced the monster in half like paper. But this is where it gets good. Nobody saw that coming. Biting into that demon's core and consuming it on the spot to absorb a wildly OP power. My name's Gate, and for now, I'm just playing the role of a random grunt in the worst place imaginable, trapped in a corrupt army that uses fake prophecies to control fools, getting treated like trash by these arrogant generals, while demons wipe out the world outside. According to them, transcendentals are our only ticket to survival. What these clowns don't realize is I'm already one of those built different gods of war. Taking orders from them is definitely not why I'm here. Behind the scenes, I'm the real monster manipulating these commanders, hacking the system and recruiting the most cracked fighters in the barracks, ready to wipe the floor with the enemy lines using a ridiculously OP force. If you're into a story with a cold, calculating lead who refuses to bow down, you just stumbled onto a hidden masterpiece. After Reversal Day, the world plunged into a chaos of red energy and destruction. Humanity entered a massive war against dragons, orcs, and all kinds of demons. This clash against the demonic race has been going on for a century, leaving millions fallen and a massive toll. Right now, the demon army pushed into the Mistfront, which is our absolute last line of defense. They're threatening the Jiokun mountain pass, a sacred spot where the deco weapons are buried, looking completely hopeless. Broken shields and swords are scattered all over the battlefield, yet even in this grim setup, one watchtower stands tall through the night. A soldier reflects that, despite all of this, their lives just don't change. Suddenly, a shadowy figure glares at him and asks if he's a transcendent. Our MC remembers when a buddy called out to him saying, "Hey, Sentry Gate." Back then, the soldier grabbed him tight and pinned him against the wall. The memory of that moment and the name Sentry Gate still haunts him. Flashing back to the present, his superior asks if transcendents get out of military duty. Seen from behind, our guy replies, "No sir." The officer warns that plenty of people are just waiting for a chance to ruin him for being so naive. Dropping a massive list of orders right after, the higher-up bans water, removing armor, talking, or sleeping, starting tomorrow, calling everyone for training. He also tells the squad to keep a low profile and detour by the river, since the Bodhi tree path is for the big bosses. Gate just nods that he gets it, while the scene shows the camp flag flapping in the wind. Hovering over the military base, the gray sky sets the dark mood for the ongoing war. Next day, our MC wakes up and a soldier asks if mid-ranks Gate is up yet, which he confirms. On day 372 of the war's quiet phase, our guy wakes up and grumbles about having a bad dream of his rookie days. He then starts gearing up for the day, strapping on his leg armor. Right after that, our boy grabs his massive red sword, getting ready for his duties. Fully dressed, he asks out loud who was on the second watch last night. An elf archer named Scully answers that it was Morris from Magic Class 2. Gate complains that the duty officer, a dwarf named Moai, came yelling into the barracks at dawn, and that's why he had that nightmare, showing several high-ranking officers with shadowed faces. The shot really flexes their authority. Scully warns that even if they let it slide, the higher-ups won't forgive the mistake, and our MC agrees. He then tells the elf to warn the guy to keep quiet and think about what he did since he's not covering for him anymore. Moving on, Gate asks for today's enlistment roster, and the archer hands him a clipboard. Scully mentions that the sacred text predicts a new transcendent might pop up in this batch of recruits, so they need to look closely. The narrator explains that a transcendent is someone who can wield one of the 10 deco weapons stuck in a special ore at the mountain pass. Anyone who manages to pull out one of these legendary weapons gets instantly classified as one of these OP beings. According to the great prophet Saint Binds, 10 transcendents need to gather on the exact same day and time. Only then can they pierce the Black Dragon Demon Lord's core and end the war once and for all. But so far, only 2 soldiers actually pulled off this feat and became transcendents: the swordsman Gate and the mage Morris. Our MC doubts the scripture, but Scully scolds him, scared someone might hear, though he chills her out saying the office is empty, insisting they have to believe it. The elf notes his and Morris's enlistment dates matched, begging him to treat the next chosen one right. She says if a new transcendent comes from the Black Magic Division, it'll be a shame since their leader, Aldring, has a huge inferiority complex. Flashing on screen, a flyer shows the perks of being a transcendent, promising triple pay and a government job, and our boy smiles, confirming it's true. Scully begs them to pick someone with mental toughness, since rumors say one more dropout means HQ will split the brigade and scatter everyone. Our MC wonders if he's the one picking the transcendent. With a smirk, he says, nope, the weapon does the choosing. Getting worked up, the elf tells him to make sense, since losing this turf war means game over for them, and our boy just says he gets it. Suddenly, they spot a familiar face walking up, and Scully wonders why this guy is here so early. When the dark elf Elf arrives. Gate greets him and the archer salutes, getting a good job in return. This is Oldring, the high-ranking black mage from the Federation's Central Company, grumbling that it's nothing new for that guy to blatantly disrespect him. Gate calls Scully to get started. Several new black magic recruits line up, ready for the evaluation. From above, the view shows the massive crowd of rookie soldiers waiting for orders. Our boy watches them and thinks that, being dark magic volunteers, there's a lot of trash in the mix. Focusing on a recruit's slouched hands, the shot highlights their total lack of discipline. The scene cuts to close-ups of various rookies, each looking more worn out or sketchy than the last. Turning around, Argyle's attention at the mob of soldiers. He keeps shouting, asking if they think they're camping or strolling through a garden, demanding they yell twice as loud. Backed by the image of a furious tiger, our MC roars 3 times, calling out their weak energy again. The whole squad answers in unison, screaming, "Attention," with everything they've got. Gate kicks off his speech, explaining they're the volunteers for spiritual power training and that one of them will lift a deco weapon and become a transcendent. He then says he's gonna look at their faces, warning that even the ones not picked will be sent to key spots on other front lines. Calling out number 7, recruit Swan, who had the highest score. He thinks she looks a bit lifeless. Right after he calls number 29, Xenia, and gets creeped out by the recruit's eyes, telling everyone to stay locked in until the review is done. Next in line is black magic volunteer number 13, recruit Nartz von Beckenberg III, the only son of the loaded Beckenberg family. It's explained that the Beckenbergs got filthy rich during peacetime by processing a material called chrome heart and supplying accessories to the royal family. Showing off the family tree, we see Nartz the first, second, and third all looking exactly the same, famous for their crazy strong fatherly genes. Someone notices the heir is decked out in chrome heart rings and wonders if he's okay, since his fingers are turning entirely purple. Back to business, our MC resumes his speech, glaring at the fresh recruits with a sharp look. He introduces himself as Commander Gate, a transcendent in the Vanguard Guide who's gonna build and lead the special task force into the final dungeon. Leaving the soldiers speechless, they whisper that he's one of the legendary beings, wondering if the sword on his back is a deco weapon. Meanwhile, the gnome Morris, who's also a transcendent, passes a clipboard around the recruits, terrified and thinking he's gonna get beat down for leaving his post. The little warrior organizes the line and tells anyone who needs it to write down their uniform size to swap later at the barracks, while someone points out how cute he is. Morrison grabs one of the lists and is stunned to see that recruit number 13 wants to swap out every single piece of gear. Recognizing the culprit right away, he pins him as one of the problem soldiers Scully mentioned earlier. With a heavy sigh, the gnome looks crushed holding the paper, while our boy and the elf watch from the back. Our MC thinks he might not be able to spot the best ones, but the worst are super obvious, deciding he's gonna filter them out hard. Right then, Oldring walks up and calls out to mid-ranks Gate. The dark elf says he's gonna escort the recruits to the barracks, and our guy replies, thrown off by his attitude. As Oldring walks off with the squad, Scully whispers to our MC, guessing he's only doing it to confiscate contraband. Gate just tells her to play dumb, saying she needs some sleep. The archer asks to head out first. Our boy dismisses her, telling her she did a good job. He then walks over to Morris, who's shaking with fear, and asks what exactly went down. Worried by the crying gnome, Gate tries to step closer to get a better look, calling out his name. And that's where it gets crazy. A violent memory flashes, showing our MC attacking Morris with this overwhelming red power. Flashing back to the past, our boy kicks a dwarf on the ground, while a soldier screams in pure terror. With brutal force, our guy stomps on the soldier's head, burying him into the dirt. A high-ranking knight named Jaga steps up, sarcastically saying he slept great thanks to all the noise. Down on the ground, the gnome can only groan in pain, trying to shield himself. Desperate, the younger MC yells out that Jaga is gonna end his buddy, but the officer replies that gnomes don't drop from something that small. Poking the kid with his weapon, the officer asks why he isn't getting up. When the gnome finally stands up, hands tied and face busted, Jaga mocks him, saying the dwarf looks fantastic. No one saw that coming. The officer acts shocked the kid didn't drop and swings his halberd right at him. Jumping right in front, our boy blocks the hit, begging Jaga to stop. Furious, the knight asks if he's trying to talk back, telling the kid to stand down. In a flashback, our MC introduces himself as Jaga to a higher up, giving him an intimidating glare. The officer asks if he wants another scar on his face, while the panel drops a rank chart for the main cast. Back in that heated moment, the rage on our guy's face is crazy obvious as he gets ready to strike back. A voiceover explains that the vague scripture prophecy mentions the long wait will fade into the shadows. Amidst all this uncertainty, rumors start flying around among the troops. They're all wondering if anyone actually managed to wield a deco weapon. Hearing about a new transcendent leaves Morris in a panic, while our MC stays dead serious, doubting the whole thing. The other warriors question if the prophecy is legit or just pure folklore. Then narration drops the truth that the balance of this savage war relies on just one single thing. With so many different races clashing on the battlefield, the absolute only way to keep order is through a hardcore hierarchy. That's why the rules gotta be even stricter for everyone. The whole idea of being a transcendent turned into bait for control, and the higher-ups use it to manipulate everyone else. Back in the flashback, Jaga claims legends don't equal rank, accusing our boy of protecting Morris just cause he's a chosen one too. Getting right in his face, the officer threatens him, asking if he wants another scar on his cheek. Not backing down for a second, our MC glares at Jaga with pure rage. Both of them just stand there, face to face, in this dead silence. Out of nowhere, the archer Scully shows up shouting the high-ranking officer's name. Jada turns to the worried-looking elf, while our boy stays totally quiet. Annoyed by the interruption, the knight asks what she wants. Giving him the rundown, the elf says the duty officer is calling the whole night division to the admin squad, adding that the vibe is awful cause the supply spear count is off, making Jaga even madder. A soldier next to him explains, it's a new model of pocket spear. Muttering a curse under his breath, the officer says he'll catch them at the barracks later. Shoving Scully hard right after, he tells her to get out of the way, leaving the archer to just stutter out a yes. Scully asks what's going on, and our MC notes that Jaga was always aggressive, but his instincts got way worse. Checking on Morris, our boy asks if he's alright, and the gnome replies he used a defense spell, so he's holding up. Furious, Gate complains that Jaga came all the way from Barracks 3 just to mess with the gnome, while the elf suspects he also came to sniff around the rich recruit for a payout. Flashing back to the air, recruit number 13, our MC mutters, "Oh, that guy." Scolding Morris, he says transcendents need to be way more careful since guys like Jada have a massive inferiority complex, and the gnome apologizes, telling him not to say sorry but to actually use his head a bit. Our boy gets a nod from the tiny mage, calling him mid-rank Gate. Switching topics, Gate asks why Morris goes to the bathroom so much, and the gnome explains it's a bowel issue for his species. A voiceover explains that gnomes have a faster metabolism, making their eating and waste cycles almost twice as fast as humans. Plus, their intestines are thinner and highly sensitive, with 95% of adults being lactose intolerant, according to the Interspecies Guide. Confirming Moai was the one who woke him up during duty sleep, Scully listens to our MC complain that nobody in the unit is normal and it's killing him. He then tells the two to clean up and head out, cause he needs to check on the recruit barracks. Panning over the rookie barracks, the scene shows a bunch of tents in a seriously bleak landscape. Locking onto recruit 29, Xenia, she's got this super intimidating look going on. Just sitting there, Xenia is staring dead at another rookie. Catching the stare, recruit 7, Swan, wonders what the heck is that person's problem. Not breaking eye contact, Xenia keeps staring hard, making Swan super uncomfortable and thinking the vibe is terrible. Walking up to the spot, our MC spots Oldring just standing at the barracks entrance, smiling with a bag of confiscated smokes in hand. The dark elf reminds our boy of some guy who hit on him at a club pretending to be a priest. A quick flashback shows the front of the Redonia club in the Eva district at night. Chilling inside the club, two girls are chatting, and one says her friend Beth broke up because she got cheated on with a dwarf, leaving the other one stunned. In that memory, the dark elf walks up to a girl and her friend, and the white-haired girl greets him with a simple hello. Flashing a smirk, Oldring invites them out, saying, since it's two of them as well, they should team up. Shooting him down, the white-haired elf says they're just there to have a deep talk. Not taking no for an answer, the elf says he'll be back in 5 to see if she changed her mind, leaving the girl to just awkwardly laugh and nod. As soon as they walk away, her blonde friend complains, asking why she brushed them off when they looked decent and she was entirely single. Breaking it down, the white-haired elf explains she ain't into scrawny guys with sharp eyes, preferring dudes with a manly scent, making the blonde ask where to even find dark elves like that, since only giants smell like that. Wondering if she's aiming for an interspecies romance too. Keeping it real, the white-haired girl just confirms that's highly possible. Snapping back to reality, our MC remembers that and thinks those were the good old days. Flipping his tone, Oldring tells the recruits to wait, cause before training kicks off, they're getting a rundown on tetanus shots. Shocked by the news, our boy complains, asking why they even need vaccines when they've got healers in the army. Ignoring him completely, the dark elf yells at everyone to stay disciplined until the medic escort arrives, and when the rookies mumble back, he orders them to scream twice as loud, getting a huge roar in response. Wrapping up his lecture, Oldring dips out of the barracks. An awkward silence fills the room, with all the recruits just sitting on the floor. Sitting there, recruit 29 Xenia thinks about how weirdly uncomfortable the whole vibe is. Muttering under his breath, a dark elf recruit complains. Oldring doesn't even look like a senior but acts like one, bragging that in civilian life, that loser wouldn't even be able to look him in the eye. Getting ticked off by the comment, Xenia tells the guy to shut his trap and stand up, calling him an idiot. Turning to her, the recruit asks if she knows him, to which she replies, "Nope, you psycho," so he tells her to come over, but Xenia dares him to bring it to her instead. Watching from a distance, our MC wonders what the heck those rookies are even doing. Suddenly, the barrack doors swing open and a massive figure steps right into the entryway. It's the Transcendent instructor, walking inside while all the recruits watch in dead silence. Gulping hard, Recruit 7 Xenia gets super nervous seeing the Transcendent instructor show up. Right then, a bulky recruit, number 13 Narts, turns around and warns them to watch out for physical contact. Confused, our boy wonders what's up with this guy having a massive rejection face plastered on him. Still glaring, Recruit 13 makes our MC think he's the one who should be ticked off, realizing the guy is straight up trash in every way. Looking over the paperwork, our boy wonders why there are so many uniform swaps today, realizing they're all from one single dude. Turning around, Narts owns up to it, claiming he was the one who did it. Breaking it down, he says the Beacon family psychic told him to dodge earth tones and stick to sky blue. Plus, more importantly, he's a winter tone, so brown is a no-go. Cutting him off, our boy tells him to quit whining and talking nonsense and just put on the uniform. Visibly annoyed, Recruit 13 turns to head inside the barracks. Stopping him right there, our MC asks what he's doing and why he isn't going in. Hesitating for a sec, Narts mutters to himself to just go and finally turns around. And that's where it gets crazy. The air blows up, screaming at our boy not to try manipulating him. Going completely dark, our MC's face shows he's visibly ticked off by the whole scene. Silence drops over the room as the instructor glares down the raging recruit. Sitting there in shock, the other rookies wonder what the heck that lunatic just said. Gritting her teeth, Xenia mutters, "Crap," pretty annoyed by the mess. Thinking bullseye, our boy then barks at everyone to hit the deck. Dropping instantly, all the recruits slam into push-up position on the dirt. Giving them a warning, he says he'll let it slide today, but if anyone acts like a dropout again, they'll see pure hell for their entire stay here. Yelling back in unison, the whole squad screams, "Yes." Pinned to the floor, recruit number 13 Narts is sweating and groaning from total exhaustion after the punishment. Quenching his jaw, he's clearly struggling with the insane fatigue and muscle pain. Next day, a voice orders the recruits to line up with their left shoulder bare and their chest glued to the back of the soldier in front. Getting ready to jab a dark elf recruit, Scully hears him complain, wondering why an archer is out here giving vaccines. Walking up to our boy, Morris asks if they seriously need to take that, even though he already got his shot. Asking if the gnome knows why Dranane, the elf healer, rocks a prosthetic leg, our MC gets a no idea from the tiny mage. Breaking the story down, he explains that in the Battle of Pobita Plains, a goblin club pierced her calf, and since she was a healer, she just patched it up carelessly, and that happened. Gate wraps it up saying there ain't much difference between dying on the spot from a weapon or dying of tetanus from a wound, leaving a spooked Morris realizing how brutal the sickness is. A voiceover drops the fact that not even the famous Archmage Vilcross, who was always upgrading healing spells, could beat tetanus. Flashing a slight smirk, our boy looks super satisfied with the lesson. Out of nowhere, he hears yelling in the distance about a head count being off and an empty spot, wondering what all the noise is about. Rushing over to him, Scully and Morris shout his name, and the instructor asks what went down. Yelling in absolute panic, the archer warns him that recruit number 13 is gone. Shocked by the news, our boy and the gnome can't even believe what they just heard. Gritting his teeth in pure rage, he thinks about that scumbag number 13. Furious, our boy asks who did the escort and why they didn't count the recruits. Scully says it was Jaga who told them to start the shots cause the schedule was dragging, triggering a memory. We see Jaga threatening the rookies, telling them to complain one more time and see what happens. Pinning the blame entirely on Jaga, our MC yells out, asking if anyone saw where that dirty scumbag went. Raising her hand, recruit 29 Xenia gets a look from our boy, who instantly recognizes her eagle-eye skill. Asking if he spotted him, Xenia confirms with a nod, almost like a salute of honor. With her eye glowing as she locks on, Xenia says she's looking right at him. Pointing it out, she reports he's heading straight for the back mountain, leaving our MC mind blown by her insane vision range. Looking where she pointed, Scully and Morris mumble about the back mountain, looking visibly worried. Putting the pieces together, our boy wonders if it's the deco weapon hill, getting furious when he realizes that jerk's true plan. Cutting over to Narts, he's standing alone in a dead field, hyping himself up that he's the chosen one. Walking up to a weapon stuck in the ground, he keeps repeating with absolute confidence that he's the guy. This is where it gets good. The rookie grabs the staff, the black magic deco weapon called Jet Black Dew, totally sure it was basically made for him. Looking back at the heirs freak out, our MC thinks about the nonsense he spouted about being a transcendent while shaking in his boots. Also poking fun at him, the other recruits joke about what a clown this guy is for thinking he's special. But right now, Narts grits his teeth, locked in, and decides it's time to show everyone what he's made of. Staff in hand, he swears to shut up all those scumbags who dare to look down on him like that. Out of nowhere, a shout cuts him off, telling him not to do it, making the recruit look back in confusion. Rushing to the scene, it's our boy and his crew, but the heir just stares at them in dead silence. In a complete panic, our MC warns that if he touches that thing now, his arm is done for, telling the jerk to step away fast. Flashing a smirk instead, Narts threatens him right back, telling him to freeze or he'll grab the weapon right now. Our boy is entirely locked up by the situation, muttering crap with a shocked Morris right beside him. Thinking it's all a cheap trick to break their will by limiting clothes and applying mental pressure, Narts brags that this clever little scheme won't work on him. Beyond disbelief, our guy asks what kind of nonsense he's spouting and tells him to just step down. Demanding honesty, the heir accuses him of being scared of a new transcendent showing up, pompously introducing himself as Narts Windsor von Beckenberg III, heir to the great Beckenberg family. At that point, our MC loses his temper, yelling that he has no clue where he got that idea, since he holds the lowest score out of everyone and doesn't even meet standard soldier requirements. Comparing his athletic skill and magic power to a tree goblin, Morris notes that's a beast known for being slow and lazy. He keeps the pressure on, warning that even if he were a transcendent, you can't just pull a deca weapon without warming up, ordering him down fast. Challenging him right back, Recruit 13 asks if he's seriously being judged by the same standards as regular folks. The heir pushes his speech further, claiming exceptional individuals always face pushback and that a chosen one's destiny is to guide ignorant fools like them. Gripping the staff's energy orb, Narts declares that today he'll claim the deco weapon and accept his given destiny. Frantic, our MC and Morris scream at him to stop, and that's where it gets crazy. Ignoring the warning, he tries to pull it, but a purple energy erupts from the weapon, leaving him entirely confused. Fully overloading him, the power swallows him in a purple aura while he screams in agony. The blast violently launches him backward right after, slamming him hard into the dirt, cursing that lunatic. Our boy rushes toward him with Morris right behind. Down on the ground, the heir can only cry and babble pure nonsense, shaking uncontrollably. Looking at the bizarre scene, the gnome asks if that's an orc or an elf, clueless about what just happened to Narts. All serious, our MC tells Morris they're out of time and orders him to head down the mountain first. A voiceover breaks down how dark magic is pretty much a curse, dropping debuffs on everything from stamina to sight and hearing. Cutting to an elf instructor, he announces today's drill is resistance against the devouring mist, a spell that cuts vision, breathing, and stamina, but also hits allies since it's an area of effect skill. He explains they need to build resistance for this kind of setup, while Swan thinks in relief that at least she can breathe without that lunatic Narts around, wondering if he dropped out. Raising his staff, the masked instructor casts a spell, filling the cave with purple energy and floating runes. After checking if everyone has their protective scarves on, he sends the first row in, and while walking into the fog, Recruit 7 thinks training dark elves in there is pretty creative. Deep in a smoke, she figures the only way they get hit by dark magic is through mirrored enemy spells, since there's an unspoken rule among them to never point staffs at each other. No one saw that coming. The instructor suddenly orders everyone to take off their masks, leaving Recruit 7 entirely shocked. Coughing right away, the elf grabs her throat while muttering a curse. Furious, she complains that not even in the Allied Kingdoms era was there such savage training, wondering if the whole point is just breaking their spirit to force adaptation. All around her, plenty of other rookies drop to the floor, choking and gasping in the purple mist. Right then, Xenia grabs Recruit 7 by the uniform and screams at her to move out of the way. Flashing a completely feral look, Recruit 29 bares her teeth. She grips onto her struggling squad mate, holding her ground and dragging herself forward even while crying from the fog. Making things worse, the instructor orders everyone to sing a military cadence during the drill and starts counting. Another elf recruit sarcastically thinks cool mage while suffering through the pain. Analyzing the instructor's assistant, she figures that even though he looks average, he's the type to assert dominance through cruel acts. The girl then realizes that if she gets a deco weapon, she'll have to work directly with that scumbag. Noticing this place is full of beatdowns and nonsense, and transcendence seem to work even harder. Freaking out at the thought of dealing with that psycho's mood, she admits he's the exact type of person she hates the most. But then she remembers the perks, like a statue, triple pay, and a government gig, deciding that for all that cash and glory, she just has to endure and push through. Thinking a transcendent should get promoted to avoid harassment from veterans, the elf figures the whole system is flawed since it was rushed during the war, finally giving the order for the first row to exit the cave in formation. The recruit sighs in relief, thinking the hell is over. Dropping the bomb that it's only a 5-minute break before the next drill, the officer tells them not to rub their eyes, while all the rookies are collapsed on the dirt, fully exhausted. Unlike the others with huge ambitions, Recruit 7 thinks about how she's an orphan and just wants the basics, doing enough to stack cash and get out of there. Keeping her life goal super simple, she just wants to not kick the bucket and live to be 500. Out of nowhere, she hears a noise and spots our boy and Morris sprinting toward the masked instructor. Totally confused by the scene, she has no clue what's going down. Getting closer, she sees our MC carrying the knocked-out Recruit 13 on his shoulders, muttering that the dropout trash finally got caught. The instructor turns around, asking why the rookie is in that state, and our boy replies, they just found him like that. Popping up in a panic, Scully yells that there are no healers anywhere and asks what they should do, getting our MC ticked off as he wonders why healers are never around when you actually need them. He then faces Morris, asking if the gnome can do something since he's a buffer, but the tiny mage explains that buffs and healing are entirely different types of magic. Staring down the black magic instructor, our boy gets cut off as the guy asks why he's looking at him, reminding him that dark magic is nothing but debuffs and can't help a dying dude. The instructor tells them to look for more healers, asking if they checked the holy water fountain yet, and our boy says he'll double check. Stepping up, Swan raises her hand and introduces herself as Recruit number 7. She walks over and casually mentions she thinks she can fix the problem using dark magic. Catching both the instructor and our boy off guard, her idea leaves them surprised. With her eyes locked on Nartz, Swan explains there seems to be a cursed creature attached to him, making it a parasite-type debuff, revealing a tentacled shadow clinging to the knocked-out recruit's back. The shot makes our MC realize it looks like a dentacula. Recruit 7 confirms his guess, explaining the dentacula is a magic-based creature, so applying a dark magic debuff should weaken it. Highly skeptical, the masked instructor asks how she plans to use black magic on a cursed beast, telling her to quit talking nonsense and wait for the healers. Stepping in, our boy says the idea actually makes sense, arguing they should try it first since it's a huge emergency. He turns to the instructor, pointing out they have 0 to lose if it bombs. They just wait for the healers anyway. Walking right up to the instructor, Swan asks to borrow his staff, leaving the elf completely speechless. Staff in hand, Swan takes her stance over Nartz's shivering body on the ground. Locking in, a purple aura wraps around her as she chants the spell's words, Adder Takoyaki. The magic flares up as she keeps the chant going with Kokushinte's polyurant, forming a magic circle on the dirt. Violent convulsions hit the heir's body as he starts clutching his own neck. Clinging to his back, the parasite shadow starts breaking apart into pieces. Finishing the spell, Swan watches the shadow fade away and casually announces it's a done deal. The creature fades entirely into the air, getting completely wiped out. Letting out a soft sigh, Nart suddenly starts snoring quietly, sleeping like a baby. Morris drops his jaw at the scene, staring in shock while our boy and the instructor just watch, speechless. Sighing in relief, Recruit 7 looks visibly drained after casting that spell. The masked instructor glances over at our MC, commenting that the guy is actually useful. Cutting to the night shift, the scene shows the military camp sitting under a starry sky, fast asleep inside a tent. Swan seems peaceful, but is trapped in a nightmare full of monsters and skeletons. Inside the dream, she sees herself huddled up, sweating and fully terrified. Back in the real world, a wagon rolls into the camp right in the dead of night. Watching it pull up, our boy and Scully observe as he notes the military police are already here. Curious about what's going to happen in Nartz, the archer listens as our MC explains they'll either give him a medical discharge or toss him in prison. Scully gets deep in thought, mentioning how wild it is that the guy actually thought he was a transcendent, questioning how his reality got so warped. Rushing over, Morris comes running in and calls out for our boy. The gnome warns that he got summoned to the officer's room, looking super spooked, adding that he was called in too. Asking why they both got called up together, Scully watches our MC flash a slight smirk and claim he has no idea. They head straight for the officer's room, making their way to a massive tent right in the middle of camp. Walking into the room, our boy and Morris show up looking completely dead serious. Inside, the vibe is heavily tense with a bunch of high-ranking officers sitting around a table, making our MC wonder why the mood is so heavy. Kicking things off, a green-haired officer explains that our MC and Morris were picked as transcendents before their skills and character fully matured, making them incomplete. He keeps going, claiming Narts, a model soldier with top grades, got confused by sudden orders, which triggered feelings of inferiority and panic in the underprepared transcendents. Wrapping it up, the officer concludes the order to pull the deco weapon while ignoring protocols was just a desperate move to ease their anxiety about losing their status. Furious at the accusation, our boy asks what the heck he even means by that. And just like that, everything changed. Jaga stands up and sadly claims they're still immature, adding that as their senior, he feels devastated and takes all the blame. Adding to the act, the knight claims they deeply feel the responsibility and will strictly discipline the two soldiers. Our boy grits his teeth in pure rage, glaring at Jaka and realizing that scumbag is actually dead serious. Panicking hard, Morris denies the whole thing, swearing they didn't do a single thing he just claimed. But Moai, this massive sergeant, blows up and tells him to shut his trap, asking what merit he even has to dare speak up. Right then, a female officer steps in, grabbing the attention of both guys. It's Rebecca, a harpy, who mentions they used to try hard and she thought highly of them. But now the company commander is hugely disappointed. Acting all superior, Jaga steps up and orders them to admit their mistake and beg for forgiveness, claiming they need to reflect since he's built different from the rest. Cutting him off, our MC puts his hand on Morris's head and apologizes, saying the gnome is still adjusting to the unit. And that's where it gets crazy. To Morris's shock, our boy takes the fall entirely, claiming he gave the order and acted recklessly. Praising his attitude, Rebecca says it looks way better this way, explaining she's not scolding them for the mistake itself, but for dodging the blame. Disagreeing right away, another officer argues that even with the confession, the issue is way too serious to just brush under the rug. Asking for a second, Jaga jumps in and cuts the officer off mid-sentence, whispering to the guard he agrees they won't let it slide and will punish them with runs, but reminds him their transcendence, making the guy hesitate. Keeping the pressure on, Jaga asks why someone in the know is being so strict and what would happen if the transcendents got hurt, even threateningly asking for his rank. Flipping his tone into a joke right after, he wraps an arm around the officer's shoulder, suggesting they keep things friendly since the higher-ups don't want a scene, and he knows the brigade commander. Wrapping it up, he says he's heading out, but they need to hand out an internal punishment and report the details straight to him. As Jaga's crew leaves, Moai notes the issue got sorted out without major drama, all thanks to the commander stepping in, glaring back with a serious scowl. Rebecca notices they're actually laughing. Back in the room, Moai drops the smile and tells Rebecca to meet him privately later, getting a nervous nod from her. Flashing a smug grin, Jaga turns to our boy and Morris, telling them they got seriously lucky. Focusing on the disciplinary record, the shot shows our MC and Morris slapped with a 7-day punishment of running 10 laps around the yard in full gear. Reading the report, our boy thinks it's absurd, but Jaga just casually calls it standard protocol and tells him to adapt, while Morris cries right beside him. Rolling a training montage, we see the Dark Elves getting bodied in a heavy storm, starting with an elf named Swan shouting about a magic device drop. The drill keeps going as she crawls through the mud under barbed wire, barely holding on to her staff. Marching in tight formation through a raging storm, they get orders to prep an attack and fire magic blasts at set intervals. Raising their staffs together, a bunch of soldiers launch waves of purple energy at an unseen target. 5 weeks fly by in a flash, and now Swan is polishing a boot in a way calmer setting, scrubbing the boot until the leather nearly peels off. She figures she's adapted to the routine, but finds it so boring she wonders if this is even right, shooting down a buddy who asks her to shine his too. Chatting about the placement interviews, another rookie explains it's only for top scorers, meaning just Swan and Xenia make the cut, making the elf realize she gets along with most of the squad. Deep down, she admits there's still one single thing she just can't get used to, and that thing is the scumbag Narts, who shows up drooling and making the weirdest noises. Full of regret, Swan thinks her good deed turned into a total disaster and wishes she had just let him drop back then. Right then, an officer walks in announcing he's posting the midterm evaluation records for everyone to check out. Walking up to the board, the elf is entirely shell-shocked, having zero clue what she's even looking at. The scoreboard puts Swan in first, Xenia in second, and somehow Nartz in third, leaving the girl fuming as she wonders how that trash rookie scored so high and what he even did to earn it. Out of the corner of her eye, she spots the exact same officer who posted the grades chatting with Nartz, who looks visibly uncomfortable in his armor, whining about his gear. The heir complains the armor looks decent but is just heavy and barely functional. Connecting the dots, Swan realizes that officer is the culprit, trying to play it cool while obviously kissing up to that absolute clown. Suddenly, a horrible thought crosses her mind, wondering if the guy's master plan is to carry that scumbag until he becomes a transcendent, questioning if that's even possible. Cutting over to the regular soldier barracks, the shot shows a super basic tent. Inside, Morris shows the scoreboard to our boy, asking why it looks like that, and our MC explains it's because that jerk Jaga stuffed Nartz's record with top grades across the board. Arguing the grades shouldn't matter since he failed to pull the deco weapon, the gnome listens as our boy explains that Central Brigade needs high scores to stay, making it Nartz's only shot at fixing his bruised ego. Outraged by the idea of that torturer officer staying in their unit, Morris complains, while a smoking Swan notes that as a dark elf, he'll be assisting the high-ranking gunner Oldering, wondering if he'll just stay quiet about it. Asking if our boy isn't ticked off, the gnome gets a cold reply that expecting nothing from humans means there's no reason to be mad, leaving Morris thinking Jaga is human too. Blown away by his maturity, Morris still admits that seeing Jaga act like that disgusts him so much he can barely even look. Walking right into the tent with a mouthful of food, Nartz demands Evian holy water, making the officer with him look super awkward. Turning around, the officer yells to see who's on water duty, dropping the chore right on Swan and Xenia. Carrying a heavy jug together, Swan complains about the weight, saying they should make the giants do this grunt work to save energy. Offering to switch sides, Xenia worries her friend's hand is hurting, but Swan just asks for a breather, feeling like she's about to drop. Catching her breath, the elf notices the portraits on the wall and asks what they are, and Xenia explains they're war heroes from every single front line. Pointing at one of the paintings, she roasts the guy's face, calling him the ugliest general on the Dark Elves' 6th front, joking he's probably that ugly just to scare off demons. Looking super awkward, Xenia tries to brush it off, saying it's not quite like that. Dropping the bomb right after, she reveals that man is actually her dad, leaving Swan completely speechless. Backtailing instantly, the elf stutters that, looking closer, he's actually super handsome and manly, praising his sharp eyes and excellent skull shape. Pulling herself together, Swan asks why a 3-star general's daughter ended up here, getting a reply that as a soldier's kid, serving the country is just natural. Mind blown by the reveal, Swan thinks about how they have a 3rd-generation rich kid and now a war hero's daughter, wondering why there are so many unique people around. Reflecting on her own messy life, she admits she has no clue what goes on in Xenia's head, while her friend just thinks Swan worries too much about pocket change. Facing a serious dilemma next, Xenia wonders which part of a shared mug is safe to drink from, surprisingly concluding the front side gets the most lips, deciding to just go for a frontal assault without thinking twice. Out of nowhere, the water jug they were carrying shatters into pieces. Later on, while pumping water, Xenia asks Swan about her placement interview, and the elf says she'll attempt the extraction and stick with the Central Brigade if she fails. Flipping the question, Swan asks about Xenia's plan, getting a reply that she'll try too, but heads straight to her dad's unit if she blanks, surprising the elf. Noting that as the runner-up, Swan should be next. Xenia hears that Nartz got called in first, probably due to an issue, getting instantly ticked off just hearing that scumbag's name. Standing before the board, Nartz leaves the council wondering what the issue could possibly be. Explaining the rules, an elf officer says recruit 13's high score lets him pick, but asks if he's dead serious, warning the choice is final and locked in. Glaring at the filled-out form, the elf wonders if this guy is some weirdo just picking entirely random options. Oozing pure confidence, Nartz replies he made his choice after some heavy thinking. Thinking it over, Jaga figures the obvious moves are retrying the extraction or applying for the brigade, meaning either way the rookie lands under Oldring, letting him just sit back and reap the rewards. No one saw that coming. The heir shocks the whole room, announcing he's staying in the Interspacies Federation's Central Brigade. Finishing his sentence, he drops the bomb that he's applying for a knight position, picturing himself flexing in a full suit of armor. That wild statement leaves every officer and rookie in the room totally stunned, with no clue what just happened. Even Jaga, who's sitting there as a high-ranking knight, is left entirely mind-blown by the pick. Unable to process it, he just stares in disbelief, wondering what on earth is going down. stepping up to interrupt. Jaga questions the role swap, but Moai cuts him off to praise the move, calling it a brilliant choice. Wrapping his massive arm around Nartz, the giant explains that sometimes a person's true calling doesn't match their species, congratulating the rookie on a bold move. Right then, Morris turns to our boy and asks what the heck is going on. Eyes wide open, the gnome is left completely clueless about the whole mess. Our MC, however, just flashes a sly smirk, clearly knowing exactly what's up. Standing outside, Morris doesn't get why Recruit 13 is heading to Barracks 3, while our boy carries his gear. Playing it mysterious, our MC just tells him to keep watching and he'll find out. Piece by piece, he figures that scumbag Jaga likely hit up Nartz's parents under the table, bagged more bride money, and now can't back out. After all, Jaga flexed to all the officers that Nartz was an A-tier rookie, so denying him now is totally off the table. Connecting the dots, our boy concludes Recruit 13 is pathologically starved for attention, wondering what choice he'll make now that his transcendent dream got crushed. Breaking it down, our MC realizes the rookie will obviously seek out the one single person who actually gave him the time of day. Flashing back, we see our boy planted the idea, telling Nartz he had a cool vibe and a night uniform would suit him, noting it only took a tiny push to flip the script. Putting it together, Morris realizes that's exactly what he whispered during their running punishment. The whole plan was to get rid of that twisted officer, since Nartz, being a dark elf, would naturally get labeled as a dark knight. Simply put, the setup left Jaga in an absolute panic. Sporting a villainous smirk, our boy officially names it Project Yaga's Contradiction. A little earlier, inside a tent, Aldring reads over a file, wondering about Recruit 13 Nartz. Looking at the paperwork with pure disgust, he can't believe that kid is an honor student, thinking it's straight up impossible. Glancing over, he spots Jaga wearing a smug grin and instantly starts connecting the dots. Right then, a dark puzzle clicks into place for Aldring, making him realize Jaga took a bribe to push Nartz onto him as an assistant. Hitting him hard, the mage realizes he's totally screwed in this scenario. Furious, he turns to Jaga and sarcastically asks if the knight has ever heard of accepting results and following the chain of command. But Jaga just congratulates him, asking if Aldring can handle training his own assistant, leaving the mage shaking with rage as he realizes he got played. Snapping back to the present, Nartz announces he's sticking with the Interspecies Federation's Central Brigade. Following that up, he declares he's applying for a knight position, picturing himself all high and mighty in full armor. That choice leaves Jaga, a high-ranking knight in the 3rd Company, entirely speechless. Meanwhile, Aldring, a high-ranking dark mage from the exact same company, just bursts into laughter hearing the news. Chiming in, an older officer notes how the rare choice got approved instantly, getting a nod from Aldring who calls it a great precedent. Reading off a report, Aldring taunts Jaga, claiming the knight treated Nartz without prejudice and pushed to break species barriers. Keeping the trash talk going, he suggests the higher-ups probably saw Jaga's true sincerity, while the panel shows the knight literally foaming at the mouth in rage. Wrapping it up, the older officer says Nartz embraced the effort, making it a win-win where sincerity prevails, though another soldier whispers the choice was way too rushed. Walking up to Jaga, Aldring whispers, asking why the sudden change of plans and if someone maybe took a bribe or rigged the scores. He taps Jaga's shoulder and throws his exact words back at him, telling him to accept the result and follow orders. Narration drops that Jaga was fuming at Aldring's taunt, but couldn't say a single word in front of the other officers in Nartz. And the craziest part is he had zero clue the mastermind behind all this was our boy, Gate. Watching from afar, our MC thinks the game isn't over yet and there's still one more move left. Morris glances at our guy, wondering if mid-rank officer Gate is actually the true demon here. Suddenly cutting to a dark forest, a leopard-like creature snaps dried branches on the ground. The beast hears a command for the lead unit to take a half step and goes on high alert, staring straight ahead. Right after, a squad of soldiers marches through the woods, getting orders to step up and close their ranks. Walking along, one of the rookies spots a weird little rock on the dirt. He bends down to grab it, keeping it as a souvenir, while another soldier complains that this guy is always picking up random junk. The group keeps marching, fully drained, while a fully geared knight rides comfortably in a wagon. Yelling that they're almost done, Jaga tells everyone to just stare at the back of the guy in front so they don't think about the fatigue, getting a unified roar back. Completely exhausted, Xenia thinks the drill is almost over and she just needs to keep moving, keep walking. An officer then orders them to sing a frontline cadence, and soon the squad starts belting out a tune about hills and valleys. With the full gear march as the final drill, the rookies finally make it back to base, wiped out but super relieved. A hand jots down some notes on a file, making it official that the 6-week basic training at the Federation's enlistment unit is wrapped up. And then, the deco weapon extraction finally kicks kicks off, with an officer announcing the third ceremony and calling for a salute to the flag. While the battalion commander gets ready to speak, Morris asks if the count restarts from our boy, but another rookie explains it's past 100 tries, including past fails. One soldier points out that if the scripture prophecy is right, it'll all end on the 10th round, getting a simple nod from our MC. Kicking off a speech, an elf commander says they endured a lot to keep this noble tradition alive. She then announces that from this exact moment, the Dark Mage rookies will begin the final extraction ceremony. Our boy gives the order for the chosen ones to step up, announcing this class has 2 candidates. Calling up Recruit 29, Xenia, and Recruit 7, Swan, he tells both of them to warm up. Both elves start getting ready, flexing their purple energy auras for the warm-up. As the class runner-up, Xenia goes first, letting out a fierce shout as she tries to pull the weapon. Deep in her mind, she apologizes to Swan, claiming she'll be the one to yank the deco weapon and become a transcendent. The narration drops that this is the legendary deco weapon, which can't be pulled using normal methods. But to Xenia, that doesn't matter, since all those legends mean 0 against her crazy muscles. Shocked, our MC wonders what she's doing rocking an ogre's muscle mass on a female frame, realizing she's just trying to brute force the weapon out. Swan, on the flip side, watches with her jaw on the floor, figuring it's just the insane power of genetics. Using a sumo deadlift stance, Xenia puts everything she's got into trying to rip the staff from the dirt. With a wild look on her face, she screams for her dad while pushing her absolute limits. But it's no use, and the weapon doesn't budge an inch, leaving her frozen and speechless. Defeated, she turns around and asks if anyone has a pickaxe or shovel, but our boy just tells her to step down. Right after, our MC calls up the next in line, Recruit 7, Swan. The other Dark Elf rookies watch in high anticipation since she's the class top dog. Reciting the scriptures, the commander declares that in their name, the worthy one will draw the weapon of transcendence. She gives the green light, and Swan steps up to the staff as it starts glowing. The elf grabs the handle with both hands, getting ready to pull. Watching the scene, Morris gulps hard from the nerves, while our MC stays dead serious. Swan takes a deep breath and locks in, hyping herself up that she can pull this off. And then she yanks with everything she has, making the veins pop right out of her hands. To her surprise, though, she wonders why the staff isn't moving even a single bit. Stunned, another elf whispers that if Eagle Eye failed, and now Swan did too, maybe it's the first time the scripture is actually wrong. Swan panics, thinking she had it in the bag but wondering if she somehow miscalculated. In a flashback, an elfwoman says Swan isn't that sharp anymore, and the girl, sensing a bad vibe, says she'll just go have fun on her own. Snapping back to the present, hand still on the staff, she thinks giving up feels comfy but then gets super confused. She starts freaking out, having no clue why her hand just won't let go of the weapon. A massive blast of dark red energy suddenly erupts all around her. Looking entirely spooked and confused, the elf stammers out a quick, "Hey!" The other rookies watch in fear, wondering why she's just standing there and finding the whole thing super creepy, flashing a smirk while Mora stands there in shock. Our boy thinks, "This girl," and he finishes the thought, saying she found the Lord of the Joken Peak as a monstrous face forms in the energy. Swan looks up in pure terror, and the entity calls her weak and entirely lackluster. Keeping it going, the beast claims that unlike the weapon's previous owner, Swan is apathetic and lacks a single drop of ambition. The entity roasts her habits, noting that despite being smart, she wastes time reading trashy novels about princesses remarrying. It drags her further, saying on weekends she parties hard at the club while her friend goes on dates, leaving her alone at the arcade just to nurse a hangover and repeat the pathetic cycle. Swan screams, "No, no, no," asking why this thing is digging up her immature past from when she was 100 years old. But the entity claps back that this is exactly why she fails. Then suddenly the voice flips, saying, "All right," and grants her the jet black dew, leaving the elf completely baffled. The beast explains she's way better than that stinking pig or the overwhelming eagle eye. Smiling, our boy thinks the dark magic deco weapon, jet black dew, has a corrupting nature, but for someone whose biggest dream is reading novels at home, she's actually a safe bet. The entity declares the weapon is hers from now on, and the elf thinks it's cool the noble lord trusts her, but she's still pretty salty about that princess comment. And with the staff in hand, she gets ticked off, yelling in her head that the remarried princess isn't trashy fiction, it's straight up literature. Swan's outburst leaves everyone stunned, with our MC, the rookies, and even the officers having no clue about literature and remarrying princesses. Entirely baffled, the elf herself is left thoroughly confused by what she just yelled out loud. Standing frozen, the other recruits just give her the weirdest looks, and ironically the weapon is finally pulled right out of the raw. It was exactly her simple and modest vibe, clashing with her crazy skills, that let Swan pull the jet black dew, officially confirming her as the new Transcendent. But the rise of the first female Transcendent ends up taking off some veteran women who watch from afar in pure disbelief. One of them, a high-ranking knight, complains it's dumb to get hyped over nothing, warning that if she's getting triple pay without seniority, she better prep for 3 times the hate. On the flip side, the rest of the soldiers celebrate, and Xenia even shouts that if it's Swan, she gives it her blessing. Suddenly, a dark energy line slices right through the air. Xenia drops the cheers and goes on high alert, wondering what the heck that was. Staring into the horizon, she thinks she just felt a crazy, sinister aura a second ago. A golden light flashes in her eyes as she locks her vision onto a faraway spot. She gazes way past the horizon, seeing straight beyond the mountains. And that's where it gets crazy. Her sight reveals a massive horde of terrifying demon monsters marching right their way. The training graduation ceremony takes place on a cloudy day with a huge crowd of rookies watching. Feeling like it's finally over, Swan finds it satisfying but kinda empty, realizing this is actually just the beginning. Out of nowhere, Xenia pops up and calls out her name. Swan gets startled and Xenia apologizes, saying she didn't bring it up on extraction day to avoid ruining the vibe. She then drops the news that she saw demons grouping up at one of the mountain peaks. Eagle Eye hands Swan that weird rock from earlier, asking her to pass it to mid-rank Officer Gate, her direct senior. Following up, she admits she has no idea what it is, but it's definitely a terrible sign. The elf looks confused, wondering if it's some rubber ball, but agrees to hand it over. At that moment, Xenia morphs into a giant rocky body, leaving her buddy completely shell-shocked. The big girl says her goodbyes, saying she's glad they met and thanking her for the last 6 weeks, pulling her into a tight hug. Breathless, Swan says she's glad they were squad mates too, promising to send a carrier pigeon on her day leave, as Xenia walks off saying, "Adios." The scene shows that rookie duo who fought earlier hugging and crying their eyes out as they say goodbye. Saying their goodbyes, the other rookies shout to take care, while an annoyed Swan tells them to shut up for a sec. She thinks about everyone staying safe, but an archer next to her bluntly notes they'll probably never see each other again anyway. The archer complains the rookies barely finish and are already whining for vacation, joking about how times have changed, which gets a nod from our MC. Surprisingly, Morris mentions he joined after leaves were introduced and even scored a 4-night, 5-day trip with civilian food. Getting ticked off by his absolute lack of awareness, our boy plays it cool when the archer asks what's wrong. Later on, Swan picks up her new uniform, rocking the official Transcendent badge. She throws it on, complaining the fabric is a bit stiff since it's new and slightly tight around the chest. Gripping her new staff, she thinks about the jet black dew and mutters that from now on they're stuck together until death. In her fresh gear, Swan announces she's done changing and orders Morris to follow her. Inside the room, Morris hands her an old notebook packed with notes. Breaking it down, he explains the book has the seniority list, cleaning duties, report formats, and all that, telling her to memorize it so she doesn't stick out. He keeps going, warning that passwords update daily and Senior Jera is super strict, so it's better to learn fast, especially for transcendents like them. Nodding along, a chibi version of Swan pops up saying, "Yes, got it." The gnome then tells her to wait and memorize everything, making sure to never let the deco weapon leave her side, and the elf confirms she gets it. Raiding through the book, Swan thinks to herself that memorizing stuff is her specialty. Suddenly, she hears a noise outside and gets curious. Peeking out of the tent, she spots our boy training, kicking things off with a sword-lifting rep. Right after he executes the rock-cleaving strike, a sword technique meant to shatter boulders. Watching him, Swan wonders if that muscle head move actually works in real combat. She then remembers the item Xenia gave her and grabs it. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Oldring reads the notebook with an evil laugh. Walking happily, he wonders what to hand off first, figuring since the girl is smart, he can just dump all the work right on her back. As he passes a tent, Oldring hears Jaga yelling at Narts for smelling bad and telling him to take his dirty laundry out of the locker, and the mage reflects on taking a long detour just to dodge Barracks 3, laughing at that useless scumbag. Keeping up his stroll, he whistles and thinks his army life is going great now. Feeling pumped, he met Swan. But out of nowhere, he stops and yells, "Hey!" with a dead serious look. Oldring orders 2 female veterans to come over, a duo that's about to get promoted to officers. Among them is Jara, a high-ranking elf healer known as the Snake Eyes of the West. The other is Asen, a high-ranking giant tank dubbed the Muscle Brain of the South. Going from the rookie's demon to a mere grunt in front of these veterans, Oldring stammers out a nervous, "Yes, ma'am." Jara then asks why he's smiling so much, wondering if something good happened, but the mage quickly denies it, Furious, Asen points a finger right in his face, ticked off that newbies are getting assistance before them, asking if he thinks that's a mess, while a terrified Oldring asks what she wants him to do. Flashing a wicked smirk, the elf orders Oldring to bring his assistant to the rec room. Annoyed, the mage thinks about the new transcendent rookie Swan, figuring it's way too early since she's still in a newbie protection period, grumbling that these two only act like officers cause the real ones went on leave. Turning around entirely mad, Jera asks what he just said, making Oldring realize she loses her mind the second anyone talks back. Right then, Asen grabs him by the collar, screaming and asking if he's messing with her. Backing down instantly, Oldring says no and promises to bring her right away, dropping to the floor right after and thinking about how primitive they act. A second later, he walks away with his head down, reflecting on how miserable his situation is. Meanwhile, inside a tent, Swan is just sitting there waiting. When Oldring shows up at the entrance and calls her out, the girl jumps up instantly, replying, "Yes, sir," making the mage notice her posture is already top tier. Outside, he's taking a drag from a smoke and asks if she uses wall hemp, and the rookie says no, but claims she would if ordered to. Blowing out the smoke sideways, the mage warns her to never touch that garbage. Swan stares at him dead serious, replying, "I won't, you idiot." Following up, Oldring warns her the veterans are calling, and she asks if he isn't one too, but the mage explains he's from a lower class, and a single batch difference is huge around here. He keeps going, saying he can protect her from most stuff but not from the female veterans, who completely ignore hierarchy, explaining that while the guys crush you, the women twist and burn you. Wrapping it up, Oldring says if she plans to stay, she's gotta get used to it and just obey, getting a nod from the elf. Back in the tent, Swan's hand rests on the notebook Morris gave her. Opening the book, she also grabs that weird rock Sania handed her. The rock sits right on top of a page from the Demonic Bestiary about the Region 9 wipeout record, which describes finding a super rare demon eye shell, a Wargle eye. Looking at the item in pure terror, mid-rank officer Gate remembers Swan handing it over and explaining recruit Xenia founded during the march, breaking into a cold sweat as he reads the only surviving region was the one where, right before the Wargle eye turned fully purple, an assault team rushed in and hit the demon territory with a preemptive strike. The book breaks down that a completely purple Wargle eye means the scout demon finished its recon and evolved into a perfect invasion form. With the purple item right in front of him, Gate realizes how heavy the situation is, muttering to himself that they're doomed. Spotting the officer's panicked face, Morris asks what's wrong, and Gate orders him to gear up for combat right now, asking who the duty officer is. The boy replies it's Sergeant Mawai, adding he went missing and is probably catching a nap in the officer's barracks. Cursing under his breath, Gate sprints off, leaving a confused Morris asking where he's heading. As he sprints, the officer thinks that without the duty officer and the veterans on leave, the next in the chain of command is. He then bursts into the room where Jera and Asen are chilling, interrupting the big girl's snack. Flashing a smirk at Asen, Jera asks if she knows who the newbie that just arrived is. Meanwhile, Swan is just standing in the middle, feeling totally awkward and having no clue what to do. The elf remembers reading in the manual about the duo from class 363, the elf Jera and the giant Asen, who always stick together and are known as the psychos of the third company. Still smiling, Jera asks how she knows that and warns her with a threatening tone that she's no longer a transfer rookie today, meaning she better know how to act. Shocked, Swan processes the veteran's low-key intimidation. She then recalls the report format from the book and introduces herself out loud, shouting her rank and name, wrapping up with reporting in Unity. Testing the rookie next, Jera asks for the daily password, and Swan answers with the full protocol, getting a comment from the veteran that it was a nice improv and looked supernatural. Throughout all this, Asen just watches quietly with a neutral face. But suddenly, Jera's hand yanks Swan's hair, leaving her entirely terrified. The elf pulls Swan close, saying back in her day, you either got your hair burned or got chosen, and Asen chimes in, saying low-ranking female soldiers can't wear skirts that short. Lifting her leg near Swan's skirt, Jera asks if she really needs to spell out what's gonna happen. Jera keeps the humiliation going, asking how Swan even got into the army with such a garbage brain. Then Asen tugs at her clothes, noting the shirt is a size too small as well, making her look like an absolute fool. Out of nowhere, Gate bursts into the room, sending Swan into a panic. Yelling out, he warns them it's a Wargle eye and it still has some brown left, meaning they're in the golden hour to act. Frantic, Gate screams that the thing is a Wargle eye, and the brown part means they still have a tiny window to make a move. Explaining further, he says by nightfall, the item will turn entirely purple and they won't be able to do a thing, just like the bestiary says, while Swan recognizes him as Officer Gate. But Asen cuts him off with a punch to the face, complaining the kid barged in while the veterans were teaching and started spouting nonsense. Stopping her right there, Jera asks to hold up and hear him out since it looks urgent, asking what's going down. Bruised up, Gate shows the item and starts explaining that if it turns completely purple, but he freezes when he sees Jera and Asin sharing a wicked smile, not taking him seriously at all. Trying to explain again, Gate says by tonight the eye will go fully purple and they'll be helpless just like the book states, while the rookie watches him. Simply dropping a hum, Asin mocks him right alongside Jera. Getting up close from behind, the elf talks about this supposed Wargle eye, telling him to speak up cause she can't hear a thing. She keeps going, mentioning Gate wasn't like this before, but after hitting mid-rank officer he started chasing girls, calling him secretly impressive. Right then the giant just boots Gate straight out of the room with a massive kick, claiming it was cool and she respects him. Asin then orders him to empty the trash and wash the barracks rags, and Jiraiya tells him to hurry up and get out. Defeated, Gate walks away thinking about how from the officers to the veterans, they're all psychos just slacking off despite such a glaring red flag, remembering Sergeant Moai sleeping and cursing out someone named Rebecca. Gripping the object tight, he desperately thinks there's no time left, that the clock is fully running out. At the wall's watchtower in the dead of night, a soldier thinks there are 40 minutes left till shift change and it's boring as hell. Asking his buddy for a fun story, one guard hears the guy complain he already told the one about how his dad met his mom and got hitched. The first soldier insists, asking for a horror story, but his friend thinks it's a drag since scary stories aren't fun at all. Suddenly, the soldier who asked for the story looks terrified and points, stuttering, "Right behind you." Cracking up, his buddy laughs and calls his acting completely terrible. No one saw that coming. A giant bizarre monster looms right behind them, and while one stares at it, the other calls him a crazy scumbag. Wrapping up the scene, the Wargle eye is shown completely purple, signaling the invasion has officially begun. After a century of war, a shaky ceasefire settled in. As time passed, the bloodstains on the battlefields faded away. Swords that once sang in combat finally went completely silent. However, the Federation forgot the oath they made on Reversal Day, and the soldiers slacked off. Laughing and saying nothing beats a good drinking session in the barracks. Officers and grunts rotted away fast without distinction, and a report showed an insane number of desertions and absences. Because of that, it was an unavoidable outcome that nobody noticed until the Black Bar, their final defense line, got breached by a Wargle demon. Desperate, a soldier blows the warning horn with everything he's got. Spotting the beast, a guard screams in pure terror that it's a demon. An elf soldier gets entirely shocked seeing the creature scale the wall, complaining about the stench and wondering how it bypassed the barrier. Standing on top of the wall, the Wargle glares down the squad of soldiers getting ready to fight. For many, running into a demon for the very first time just causes pure sickness and panic. And since the Wargle is a high-tier beast among low-class demons, several soldiers just start throwing up. Most of them can't even hold it together because of the overwhelming pressure and despair the monster's presence brings. Jumping in for the attack, its bloodlust and aura are so heavy they make the soldiers gasp in fear. Gripped by sheer terror, one of the guards is left entirely paralyzed. He barely manages to lift his sword for a desperate block. Pushing forward with zero mercy, the demon tears right through the soldiers in its path. A single survivor trembles, staring down the creature and begging it to stay back. But the Wargle grabs him with a tentacle, leaving the guy just groaning in pain. Watching from afar, our MC glares at the scene with pure fury and determination. Against the full moon, Gate leaps up with his massive sword, ready to strike the Wargle. Eyes glowing with rage, he completely locks onto his target. Then, he drops down at an insane speed, burying the blade right into the beast's head. An agonizing scream of pain erupts from the demon, echoing through the night. Splattering blood everywhere, the beast roars, heavily damaged by the strike. With his feet planted, Gate keeps his sword buried deep inside the monster's skull. Heavily panting, he realizes this isn't a hallucination, as the text drops his title as the Transcended Swordsman Gate, proving the threat is real. Yet even with a busted head, the Wargle stays standing, glaring right back at the swordsman. Popping up on a nearby roof, Oldring yells out, totally shocked to see an actual demon. Two archers quickly take their stance, with Sierra announcing she secured the spot and is ready for fire support. Panning over the whole courtyard, the shot shows the Wargle surrounded by a bunch of soldiers, including mages and swordsmen, gearing up for the fight. Caught in the middle of the chaos, Morris is frozen in fear, whining in absolute panic. Another elf rookie stares stares at the creature, completely mind-blown and wondering what on earth that thing is. Swan is right there too, gripping her staff with a look of pure disgust and repulsion. Noticing she's shaking, Oldring scolds her, asking why she's acting so rattled. He then turns to Morris, pointing out that besides Oldring, there are 0 veterans or officers nearby, meaning the plan is to act first and report later. Furious, Oldring looks around for the rest and grumbles that the horn already blew while all the other scumbags are hiding somewhere. Shouting at a coughing soldier next, he orders the guy to put on his scarf and quit whining. Meanwhile, the massive wound on the Wargle's head starts closing up, regenerating entirely. Staring at the scene in shock, Gate realizes he's dealing with a swamp-type demon, built specifically for crazy regeneration. The bestiary ranks fully evolved Wargles as high-threat entities, and it's not just because of their aggression. What makes them truly terrifying is the slime they drop, known as swamp, which spreads and hardens to turn the ground into a demonic zone. Frozen stiff, Swan tries to prep a spell, but Oldring screams at her to wake up. Bellowing out loud, he orders the rookie to snap out of her shocked state. From a distance, a soldier clenches his fist, figuring it's his time to step up. Suddenly, a mounted knight shows up, but his horse rears back, entirely spooked by the chaos. One of the archers screams at the knight to move out of the way and stop blocking their line of sight. Firing an arrow, she misses as the Wargle casually deflects it, and the knight caught in the crossfire takes the hit instead. As the focused fire keeps going, Swan feels totally disappointed in herself amidst all that chaos. She watches the overconfident, clueless soldier charging in without an ounce of fear, making her feel completely useless. Shaking so hard she can't even take a single step, the girl questions what kind of transcendent she's supposed to be. Right there on the battlefield, the Wargle gets boxed in by Gate and the squad, all prepped for a coordinated strike. Gate remembers that if the main demon body drops before the slime hardens, the swamp breaks down too. Knowing the bestiary already broke down this beast's stats, he realizes there's a proven strategy to beat it. Its biggest weakness is the soft keratin shell, since it hasn't molted in a long time. Specifically, the joint membranes are the absolute most vulnerable spots to hit. Locking his eyes on the joint membrane around the neck, Gate pinpoints the exact weak spot. With his muscles tensed, he pours all his strength into landing a single, flawless takedown strike. But right as he swings, a rock-hard shell the demon formed on the spot completely blocks the attack. Mind blown by the block, Gate stands there wondering how his hit just bounced off. Clashing with a loud bang, Gate's sword gets stuck by the Wargle's armor, defending itself at the very last second. Thrown backward from the impact, our boy is left totally confused, trying to figure out what just happened. He then realizes it was a defensive move, but definitely not one based on actual intelligence. Flashing back to the deserter officer bouts, Gate recalls him explaining that protecting the neck is just raw survival instinct, adding that guy was the type to make others shine his boots. Armed with that thought, our MC grips his sword hilt tight, getting ready to rush back in. And no one saw that coming. A dark, magic binding spell shoots out from behind him, catching him entirely off guard. Pointing at the now-trapped beast, Oldring yells out, mocking the monster for just being huge and absolute trash. The other soldiers instantly turn to him, calling him high-rank Oldring and asking what their next move is. Joining the group, Sierra begs Oldring to drop the tactical orders already. Only then does it click for the elf that he's the highest-ranking guy on the field, basically the battle commander. Panicking hard, he screams at Morris to cast area of effect buffs and orders everyone to go all out, calling for a massive blind bombardment. Morris obeys instantly, casting the Light Magic Spirit King's protection to buff the whole squad. Right after that, Sierra commands the archers, screaming at them to fire in rapid bursts. Arrows rain down on the demon, which is already pinned down by that dark binding magic. Meanwhile, Swan preps her own spell, chanting the magic words. She then unleashes the Throne of Eternal Sleep, a crack binding spell that completely locks the Wargle in place. Thrashing around wildly, the creature tries to break free from the magic chains holding it down. Back in pure panic mode, Morris screams that the spell is already loosening, wondering if he should have just single target buffed someone instead. Desperate, he yells at Gate to hurry up and do something fast. But our boy stays locked and griping his sword and waiting for the absolute perfect opening, thinking it just needs a little more time. Losing his mind, Oldring screams for Gate to attack, warning that the monster is about to break free. And he's totally right, cause the Wargle starts shattering the magic restraints using nothing but raw brute force. Locking its gaze right on our MC, the beast completely ignores Oldring's yelling in the background. With one final massive roar, the demon breaks entirely free from the magic chains. Spotting his window in that exact split second, Gate's eye glows as he knows it's finally go time. Our boy dashes forward at a crack speed, charging up a devastating strike with his massive sword. Flashing a confident smirk, he promises himself he's definitely gonna end this right here. Two nearby soldiers watch the scene unfold, completely frozen in shock by how fast he's moving. Slicing right through the Wargle's waist, the blade delivers a brutal and clean hit. That hit is so incredibly OP that it literally chops the monster in half, severing its torso from its legs entirely. Watching from a distance, the elf archers drop their jaws at that crazy flex of strength. Oldring, Swan, and Morris all react too, each showing their own mix of absolute shock and relief. Launched high into the air against the moon, the demon's torso sprays a dark trail of blood across the sky. Panting heavily, our MC stares at the battle's aftermath, while the text hypes him up again as the transcendent swordsman gate right in front of the fallen demon's body. The narration confirms the Wargle entity was successfully wiped out. Catching the action from the wall, someone drops a stunned "wow" after witnessing that flex. But then the camera suddenly pulls way back, shifting focus to a snow-covered mountain in the distance. This is where it gets good. A massive reptilian eye snaps open right on the side of that very mountain. Looking exactly like a mountain itself, the colossal beast lets out a furious roar that shakes the entire region. Then the shot reveals its surface is crawling with thousands of other demons, all roaring together in response. Standing out in the horde, a white-bodied demon growls with glowing purple eyes, tagged by the system as a Groton. Over at the Federation's command HQ, the Baekryong Citadel, an animal messenger flies in a massive rush toward the building. Sitting inside her office, Captain Rebecca, a winged woman, gets startled when the messenger drops right onto her desk. She snatches the note while her tiny pet fusses around, wondering if it's a direct line since it's the exact same issue from yesterday. Cutting to a quick flashback, we see our MC writing out that exact report by candlelight. Back in the present, Rebecca reads the file and is left completely shell-shocked by the intel. Shortly after, over in the HQ's officer conference room, the door slams open with a huge bang. Barging right into the meeting, Rebecca screams that they've got a massive emergency on their hands. Inside the room, an officer stares at a scrying orb showing a demon's eye, mirroring his own stressed-out face. The officer group, basically the 5-point constellation command team, welcomes her, with the leader noting she showed up at the perfect time, trying to process the mess. The captain thinks about the glitchy signal that just came from the scrying orb. One of the officers explains they didn't get a single image during the ceasefire, so they just assumed the crystal broadcast tower was totally dead. Checking out the letter, another officer points out that if this report is legit, our boy predicted the demon infiltration since yesterday. A third officer questions the demonic bestiary's credibility, claiming he thought it was just a bunch of scribbled nonsense. Shutting down the doubt, the leader confirms they saw everything through the orb's residual image, proving the Transcendents are actually built different. One of the members argues that with the barrier broken and the swamp hitting the walls, there's zero time to lose, demanding an immediate advance order. Pushing back, an older officer reminds everyone it's still a ceasefire, warning that its hacking could escalate a situation that might just fade out quietly. Furious at the old man, the first officer yells that you don't provoke demons, since they're just pests meant to be wiped out. He keeps going, questioning how the guy can spout that nonsense when the defense line is already cracked and the bugs have breached the walls. Annoyed by the harsh tone, the older officer points out that if the attack hit the Groton blood lands near the enlistment unit. Pointing at a map, he explains this is the furthest spot from the core demon territory, and their boss there is just a hive mind host. With moving the whole army being a hassle, he suggests sending just the 3 Transcendents on a special op, since they were hand-picked for this exact kind of infiltration. Hearing that idea, the council leader locks eyes with Captain Rebecca. He then asks if she has any thoughts on the whole mess. Back in the courtyard, Oldring walks up to our MC helping a downed soldier, asking if he'll get locked up for breaking the chain of command, but the boy says it's an emergency and he trusts Moai 0% now. Our boy watches the Wargle's slime dissolving, noticing the nasty stuff is still twitching. Breaking it down, he explains the only reason a free-roaming Wargle strikes first is because another one's swamp is already spreading and hardening. Dead serious, he concludes it's just a matter of time before the regular demons start swarming in. Gate declares they gotta sneak into the bloodlands and take down the white body host, since wiping him out makes all the connected minor units vanish. Glancing at the bestiary, he confirms the text wasn't wrong and needs a serious second read. Still super confused, Morris steps up and asks what the plan is now. With a fierce look, our boy drops a single word, march, leaving the tiny elf entirely mindblown. Staring at the horizon at dawn, Gate realizes realizes the ceasefire is completely done and it's time to push forward. A specific bestiary quote crosses his mind, saying history always boils down to take them down or drop yourself, with zero third options. Meanwhile, a soldier rocking a man bun wakes up, wondering what the heck went down last night. Grumbling to himself, he wonders why the weirdo stayed quiet all this time just to suddenly snap and attack. With a glare at a wounded soldier, the guy wishes the scumbag would just drop already, but still tells someone to drag him to the medbay. Right nearby, two other grunts chat about the loud horn from earlier, joking that a demon slipped in and the rookies got hyped to fight it. Overhearing that chat, Swan gets super bummed out by their lack of care, thinking the whole vibe is just depressing. Out of nowhere, a furious officer storms in screaming, asking if the chain of command is a joke and how they caused all that chaos without even telling a higher-up. The guy keeps his rant going, yelling at our boy and the crew to scrub the whole place down and mask the stench of the battle. Standing in the rain, our MC stares at the wall, while a voice in his head asks what the heck is going on. Deep in thought, he tries to figure out where this weird, creepy gut feeling is coming from. A crystal tower's light flashes right through the dark, rainy night. Cutting over, Sergeant Moai is busy faking a report, claiming his brave command wiped out a Wargle around 3 a.m. with 0 casualties. Right after he kicks his feet up on the desk, thinking about how chill life is without Rebecca, and how dodging that Viper's face makes the place actually bearable. Back in the present, our boy glares at the dirt, wondering if this whole setup is actually real. Looming right over them, the elf Jera glares down with pure disgust, asking why they pulled that stunt. The veteran roasts our MC and his two buddies who are kneeling in the mud, acting totally baffled by the whole mess. Grabbing a filthy shirt, Jira whines about the stench and complains they should have brought the laundry in before the storm. She then boots Aldring, who's hanging upside down, demanding an answer while the terrified mage just screams an apology. Dragging the rant out, the veteran complains about having no hot water and insults him, asking if he's just a slow-learning forest elf, getting a quick denial. Our boy finally stands up to clear things up, telling Senior Jera she needs to realize yesterday was a serious emergency that isn't over yet. But the officer from earlier cuts him off, snatching his chin and mocking him for not just saying yes ma'am, asking if dropping one demon makes him think he's special. Squeezing our guy's face hard, the officer screams that veterans freezing without clean clothes is way more important than some demon, ordering him to do laundry and boil water even if he drops dead. With a smug smile, Jera crosses her arms and jokes about how great the unit is, whining that reteaching the basics is just exhausting. The whole truth instantly clicks for our boy, realizing this was exactly the source of that creepy gut feeling. He figures out that having 0 casualties made everyone brush off the real danger, concluding these scumbags only take things seriously when there's actual bloodshed. Flashing a super dark glare, our MC thinks that maybe someone really should have dropped last night. The officer catches that shift in his vibe, smirking as he notes the rookie isn't even trying to hide his attitude anymore. Right then, a grunt turns around and yells at the top of his lungs for everyone to hit the parade ground immediately. Standing next to Jira, the officer complains about roll call in the rain, while the elf asks if they should just group up here again later. Off to the side, our boy and his crew just groan at the mess, with him cursing the whole setup in his head. An eye patch-wearing officer steps up, announcing he's skipping the formal brief to drop the final call. Breaking it down, he explains that only the Transcendents, buffed by the Jokun presence, can survive the bloodlands where the hive mind boss chills. He keeps going, noting that regular troops choke in enemy turf without scarps, but Transcendents walk easy thanks to the deco weapons purifying the air. Because of that, he screams that the proud Transcended squad will push ahead as the vanguard, just like yesterday's Wargle takedown. Walking right up to our crew, he orders them to drop the white-bodied Groton host and shoot up a flare so the main army can roll in and clear the zone. But our boy cuts him off, arguing the path is packed with demons and 3 guys with 0 backup can't reach the bloodlands, meaning this order is a straight-up death sentence. Absolutely losing it, the older officer screams, asking if he's seriously talking back to a direct command. Gate just brushes off the heavy pressure, staying locked in on calling out their massive flaws. Pushing back again, the kid warns they're entirely out of time and demanding an immediate all-out march for the entire army. The boomer completely ignores him, spouting some nonsense about soldiers' spirit, yelling that believing is achieving and he's sure the trio can handle the raid. To wrap things up, he orders them to clean the yard in the rain and stay on standby since the 3 Transcendents are rolling out at first light. With the meeting dismissed, the guy walks off while our MC just glares daggers at his back. Grasping the true danger, our boy realizes the fully evolved Wargles are gonna breach the black barrier today. Right when every single second counts, a feather slowly drifts down past his face, throwing him off. The feather lands right on his chest, leaving him completely clueless. Following the trail, he tilts his head up to see where it dropped from. No one saw that coming. Captain Rebecca slams down into the dirt right in front of the squad, completely shutting up the officer. Standing like a shield right in front of our boy, she locks eyes with the older officer, looking dead serious, completely shocked. Our MC can't believe Captain Rebecca actually showed up to back him. Right behind her, 3 more winged troops touch down heavily in the pouring rain. The scumbag Moai freezes up entirely, stuttering as he asks how the heck she got back so fast. Gripping the fake report, Rebecca asks Moai straight to his face if he's the one who penned that garbage. Desperate to explain, the sweating officer tries to backpedal with a quick, "Captain, let me." And that's where it gets crazy. She doesn't even let him finish, throwing a brutal punch right into his jaw. Moai stumbles backward from the heavy hit, left entirely speechless and groaning. Crushing the paper in her fist, she completely bodies him, screaming that he wrote a trashy fiction novel instead of a real report. She then asks if the idiot thought the broadcast crystal was just for show, leaving the scumbag entirely shook. Flexing the truth, Rebecca claims that with the tower online, those written reports are entirely useless anyway. She keeps the pressure on, pointing out that without reading a single word, it's crazy obvious. Sweating hard, Moai cringes as she finishes saying it's clear who was putting in the work and who was slacking in the back. With the clown silenced, Rebecca pulls out a brand new scroll. Snapping it open in a flash, she screams at the top of her lungs for all personnel to stand at attention. The commander announces she got an emergency ping from HQ and rushed back, strictly warning everyone this isn't a drill. Spreading her wings wide, she declares that starting today, right at this exact minute, she drops the ultimate order, commanding the whole enlistment unit to gear up in full combat armor instantly. Locking eyes directly with our MC and his crew, she finishes by saying they're marching straight to war. To make it clear, Rebecca explains the demons are all linked up to a single shared hive mind. That exact detail means the low-tier trash mobs never make a move without a direct ping from the main boss. Backing it up, she claims history and the demonic bestiary prove those beasts just declared the war is officially back on. Back in the HQ meeting, an officer points out the ceasefire was just a temporary pause, and if they miss this strike window, the captain finished his thought back then, stating a massive opportunity like this will never show up again. And just like that, everything changed. The entire army marches out of the base gates, straight into the heavy storm. Reporting the status, a flying guard notes he called for backup, but with all fronts under heavy fire, support is basically a myth. Getting a reply from Rebecca that it's a speedrun now and waiting isn't an option. Swan whines about the officers having it super easy since return orders take forever to drop, realizing the whole vacation system is entirely wiped out. Nearby, 2 rookies completely panic, with one crying they're absolutely doomed, while the other openly admits he's terrified of what's coming. Out of nowhere, a guy starts hacking his lungs out, wondering what the heck is in the air. Shocked by the visual, Rebecca spots the purple swamp and wonders if it already breached past the black line right into Federation turf. An officer instantly screams for the whole squad to cover up with their scarves, getting a quick reaction from the troops. Stepping through the nasty slime, one grunt gags and complains the whole vibe is completely gross. Creepy bubbles start popping out of the thick purple demonic mud on the ground. Without warning, a twisted creature bursts out of the sludge, locking its jaws right onto a rookie's shoulder. The beast yanks him deep into the swamp, leaving the guy screaming in pure terror as he goes down. Right after that, a bunch of other creatures, the geese, pop out of the water, and a soldier screams they've arrived. Rebecca instantly yells for the infantry to get into formation. Moving fast, the infantry sets up, locking down a shield wall glowing with purple energy. Slamming hard right into a shield, one of the geese pushes while the soldier behind it struggles to hold the line. Diving from the sky with her sword drawn, Rebecca gets ready to strike a giz trying to breach the wall. With a single clean strike, she takes the monster's head right off. The captain then shouts to the squad, explaining that slicing off a giz's nose ruins its sense of direction and leaves it defenseless, ordering everyone to aim right for their snouts. Following orders, the soldiers push forward and start slicing up the giz, focusing entirely on their noses. A note from the demonic bestiary confirms this strat, explaining the giz rely heavily on smell and get disoriented without a nose, spinning aimlessly just like the creatures in the panel. And that's where it gets crazy. The situation gets way worse when 2 massive Wargles pop up right in the middle of the chaos. Panicking hard, a soldier screams there are 2 of them and they were ambushing, trying to jump straight over the inner wall. Realizing they have even less time than she thought, Rebecca orders the Harpy strike team to hit the left Wargle. She also yells for the archers to fire non-stop at the right Wargle. angle, while the winged soldiers handle the other one. Unleashing a massive rain of arrows, the archers back up a soldier who screams the line is breaking, telling everyone to hold their ground. Hitting the Wargle, the arrows just bounce off, looking completely useless against its thick shell. Letting out a furious roar of pain, the right Wargle charges full speed straight into the shield formation. Thrashing around wildly, the creature swings its massive arms with pure violence, shattering the formation with a single hit. The monster sends several soldiers flying while Swan the mage screams in terror. Catching the beast's impact, the elf gets violently launched backward. But right before she hits the ground, she casts a spell, making giant ice spikes erupt straight out of the swamp. Using one of the spikes as a stepping stone, our MC jumps and blocks a Wargle's attack aimed right at Swan. He then shouts he'll handle the Wargles, ordering Swan to drop the devouring mist into the hole to wipe out the Giz. Looking a bit awkward, the mage stammers back that mist was the plan, looking super confused. Right after, Swan gathers purple energy in her hands and starts chanting a heavy spell, expanding her legion. Wondering if Moai seriously planned to send just 3 rookies in there, she remembers him saying he'd send the 3 transcendents first, and finishes her cast to expand the zone. Suddenly, a massive burst of purple energy erupts all around her. Analyzing the field, our boy thinks that once you get their attack pattern down, reacting gets way easier. He realizes the monsters instantly react to ranged attacks and throw up their defenses. Because of that, the real strat is diving in close, right into the middle of the horde, and then wrapping it all up with one flawless strike. Slicing the Wargle perfectly in half, our guy ends it in a single precise move. That hit is so cracked that sparks fly everywhere, lighting up the whole scene. Meanwhile, 2 harpies dive from the sky, crossing their blades mid-air. Teaming up, they deliver a massive X-shaped slash right into the second Wargle. Soon after, a grunt announces both monsters are down and the fight is officially over. He confirms the squad is finally crossing the black line and pushing into enemy territory, but Swan is completely frozen, shaking and thinking her mind just went blank without doing a single useful thing yet. Rebecca then screams to the squad that from this spot on they are officially in demonic territory. The elf stays locked up in fear while the captain orders everyone to move fast toward the bloodlands and stay on high alert. Confirming the order, the soldiers push forward. The one elf groans in pain from a nasty cut on her face. Stepping up to heal it, Ameta complains she warned her about flying shrapnel, noting it might leave a scar. But our Harpy interrupts, yelling at her to patch up the fighter first, making the annoyed elf apologize. The fighter in question is this massive, built woman who's already staring down another giant dragon-like beast. No hesitation, she lands a heavy punch right into the monster's attack, shattering it into a million pieces, clicking her tongue. The masked brawler looks visibly ticked off by the whole mess. Right after, she grabs a grunt's head and complains she specifically told them not to let enemies reach her. While they apologize in pure terror, watching from above, one of the harpies thinks the squad's team comp isn't actually that bad. But, she notes, thanks to the swamp's debuffs and mana drain, everyone's stats are way lower than usual. The wing fighter realizes that even far from the main brain, the enemy's mana is heavy, concluding the ultimate key to winning this raid is the 3 transcendents. Out of nowhere, another harpy points ahead, yelling that she spots the bloodlands right at 11 o'clock, but a soldier in the back fully panics, warning the demons are grouping up right behind them. Reacting fast, Rebecca screams for all the light mages to expand the world tree spell. Instantly, a magic staff glows bright and unleashes a massive wave of blue energy. A giant light barrier, the world tree sanctuary, wraps around the whole squad, dropping an area of effect defense buff against the beasts. Announcing the hold the demon push along the formation line. A soldier gets ready while the creatures roar outside, slamming into the glowing vine barrier. The demons shriek in absolute fury because they can't break through. Safe inside, Rebecca calls out to Gate, who replies with a quick, "Yes, Captain." Reminding him the sanctuary won't hold up for long, our boy nods, confirming he knows the clock is ticking. Rebecca then orders all leftover mana to be poured into healing and maxing out the Transcendence buffs, while the rest of the squad holds the line. Asking if the Transcendents are good to go, the captain gets a nod from Swan, standing right next to the tiny warrior, screaming the order to push ahead. Rebecca watches the trio sprint straight into the pitch-black enemy territory. Deep inside the bloodlands, it's so dark you can barely see a thing, with only the faint glow of their weapons guiding them. Suddenly, our boy's arm lights up, and a system alert pops up saying his deco weapons Jekon's breath skill just activated, wrapping the trio in a bright red aura. The weapon's defensive buff fully kicks in. explaining the light basically works like a torch now. Our MC tells the others to stay close and follow his lead. Nodding hesitantly, Swan agrees, while the tiny elf mage looks completely terrified by the whole vibe. Our boy then thinks to himself that, at the end of the day, this fight is something he's gonna have to solo. He figures he needs to wrap this whole thing up using nothing but his own raw power, facing the white-bodied host while dragging two clueless rookies. Our MC swallows his fear and despair, walking deeper into the dark. Creeped out by the silence, Swan asks if there are 0 demons chilling in the bloodlands. Breaking it down, our boy explains this is the host's chamber, a spot so sensitive not even an ant can sneak in without permission. And that's exactly why the second he snaps a twig, the reaction is instant. A monstrous mouth packed with razor-sharp teeth lunges out of the shadows, proving our guy's theory right. Stepping fully into the light, the beast reveals itself, and he concludes that most boss hosts roll entirely solo. Crushed by the monster's heavy aura, the two rookies completely freeze up in terror. Trying to chill himself out, the tiny mage stutters that, despite the hype, the thing is only slightly bigger than a Wargle. No one saw that coming. The demon's rocky, muscular bodies suddenly start shaking and inflating. Letting out a deafening roar, the beast unleashes a shockwave as its body rapidly buffs up in size. Towering right over the tiny squad, the demonic creature turns into an absolute giant. Losing his mind, the mage screams that the monster's mass literally just doubled. Dragging its razor-sharp claws across the rocks, the host gets ready to strike. In a total panic, Swan and the mage scream our boy's name, charging with cracked speed. The creature shatters the ground with every single step, but our guy doesn't budge an inch, facing the attack head-on with absolute focus. A brutal impact wrecks the whole area, but our MC manages to block the monster's hit right at the front. Gritting his teeth with his eye glowing, he pushes his absolute limits to hold back the beast's insane power. Meanwhile, the host keeps dropping this crushing pressure, flexing its massive frame and glowing purple eye. Watching this go down, Swan and the tiny mage are totally spooked, just groaning from the pain and terror. Our boy struggles to tank the hit, thinking he needs to lock in, cause if he slips up even a little, everyone drops dead. The host keeps pushing with completely unfair strength, nearly crushing our guy flat. A system tag identifies the beast as Groton, the white-bodied host and one of the sub-brains. Drooling from its massive jaws, Groton dials up the heavy pressure even more. The force is so overwhelming that the impact blasts out another shockwave, pushing our boy backward. Barely holding his ground, he watches his two buddies collapse to the dirt, getting completely sick from the crushing aura. Pinned to the floor, Swan feels her whole body lock up and wants to throw up, hating this transcendent gig and just wanting to survive. Curling up on the dirt, her body goes into pure survival mode, submitting out of pure animal instinct. Spotting her condition, our boy screams for her to wake up and snap out of it, while the demon preps another heavy strike. Going all out, Groton launches itself forward, ready to completely wipe the squad off the map. But the hit just slams into the dirt, kicking up dust as the beast realizes they totally vanished. Dodging just in time, our boy is now stuck carrying the two paralyzed rookies away from the danger. Annoyed, he thinks how the heck he's gonna fight that massively OP monster with these two dead weights. Flashing back to Moai, he remembers the Transcendent troops gotta take down the host and light the signal for the rest of the army to push up. Back in the present, our MC curses in his head, calling the commanders completely brain-dead clowns. He takes a deep breath, deciding to drop the useless thoughts and lock in on one single thing taking that creature down. Analyzing the enemy, he figures it's essentially a high-tier Wargle, and the attack pattern isn't that different, so he just needs to be the guy to handle it. With his mind focused, he charges at the monster, deciding not to back down and actually use the enemy's own attack against it. Quickly closing the gap, he gets ready to aim straight for the beast's weak spot. Groton charges full speed, flashing its razor-sharp teeth and getting ready to strike. Our boy goes on high alert, realizing the massive danger coming his way. Jumping up quick, he strikes the monster's tail, but the hit doesn't have the effect he wanted. The impact launches him backward, and he lands super awkwardly on the dirt. Down on the grounds, he notices that even with flawless strength, speed, and timing, the beast's joint membrane didn't even scratch. He wonders how on earth they're gonna manage to beat this thing. Battered and bruised, he leans on his sword, which is planted in the dirt right next to a skull. Suddenly, an idea hits him, and he asks himself, how about this? While checking out the details on his blade, a memory pops up showing a buddy named Boats flexing the carvings on his own weapon, saying some guy named Leo from Barracks 3 did it for him. Surprised, our boy wonders if that was actually the officer Bouts. Then it finally clicks at him it wasn't, but desertion, making him stare right at the skulls scattered on the ground. And the reality hits hard when he notices those bodies belong to other soldiers who dropped right there. In reality, for a host demon completely used to massacres, the transcendent swad with zero actual combat experience was nothing more than a simple toy to kill time. Groton then starts crushing the boulders around him with a single punch. Right after, he spins and hurls the debris with cracked strength straight at the group. Swan and the tiny mage get hit head-on by the shower of Ra. Both of them drop to the dirt, super bruised, while the mage tries to drag himself away trembling. Turning its head, Groton glares at the mage, who's struggling to stand up, shaking from fear and pain. With that, the monster propels itself forward at a wild speed, charging straight for the kid. The beast moves like a total blur, leaving a trail of dust and destruction in its wake. Knocked down but alert, Swan breaks down the movement, realizing it's no regular dash, groaning in pain right after. Gathering her last bit of strength, she channels purple energy into her staff and casts a spell called Ether Quietus. This dark magic, the throne of eternal sleep, pops up as chains that wrap around Groton, completely locking him down. A thought bubbles up explaining that, just like a sword, magic requires heavy focus, while the girl is shown panting hard. And that's exactly why spells cast while you're terrified never work out right, making the magic chains holding the creature start to crack. Letting out a deafening roar, Groton shatters the rest of the magic, sending a shockwave everywhere. Our boy watches the scene and realizes that this thing isn't an opponent they can take down in their current state. Free from the spell, the beast leaps into the air, ready to crash down and crush everyone at once. But our boy stirs himself right in front, blocking the monster's arm with his blade in a brutal clash. He thinks he swung aiming to slice, but the force is so wild he barely manages to deflect the hit. The shot highlights the crazy size gap between our MC and Groton, who's being held back by pure determination. Pushing even harder, the host throws more weight into the strike, and the clash of power creates a massive energy blast. Sent flying backward from the recoil, our prota tumbles violently across the rocky ground. Quickly bouncing back, he figures the power gap is overwhelming, and to slice that beast's neck, he needs to make Groton's weakest spot and the strongest point of his sword, the stone blade, meet flawlessly, just to have a tiny sliver of a chance at making it work. Our boy then stands up, planting his blade in the dirt and saying that now they... Turning to Swan, he asks her straight up if she's just gonna die right there. She replies firmly that if he doesn't provide the right backup, they're all kicking the bucket. And if they mess this up, the troops holding the line outside are getting entirely wiped out too. Hearing that, our MC tells her to stop thinking about anything else and just focus entirely on how to beat that monster. He strictly orders her to become fully obsessed with winning. To finish it off, he drops a worst-case scenario, "You die, so what?" trying to shake the girl out of her panic. That exact line, delivered with the resigned calm by our boy, surprisingly makes Swan actually chill out for real. She remembers the only spell cracked enough to trap a demon of that level is the Earth Summon Karastra. The catch is, the further the target is from the ground, the weaker the magic gets. Because of that, she'd need to dump all her remaining mana into a super dense spell right when his head gets close to the dirt, but she has no clue how to hit a constantly moving target. Thinking it over, she figures slicing that thing would be tough even if it stood still, wondering how the heck something that massive can move so much. Silent for a second, the girl processes the heavy situation. Out of nowhere, an idea sparks, and she decides to test a quick theory. The elf breaks it down, reasoning that if the momentum scales up, the amount of movement they gotta control spikes too. With that, she turns to the tiny mage and asks him to cast a buff on just one of the monster's legs. But the kid complains his mana is low and he doesn't get why. Yelling back, Swan tells him they have zero other options and orders him to just do it fast. Meanwhile, Groton is already midair, getting ready to launch another strike. Left with no choice, the tiny mage grumbles, "Ah, screw it," and holds out his hand to cast the spell. Flexing hard, he screams the spell's name, triggering a heavy strength-boosting buff. Blue magic instantly wraps around one of Groton's legs, making it way more overpowered than the other. As the kid wraps up his cast, Swan is already prepping for the next move, staff tightly gripped. No one saw that coming. Rocking one leg way stronger than the other, the monster completely loses its balance mid-air, spinning totally out of control. Completely confused, the beast has no clue what the heck is going on with its own body. That heavy imbalance makes it flip over and crash headfirst right into the dirt, kicking up a massive dust cloud. Spotting the perfect opening, Swan screams "now" and starts chanting her own spell, Your Pistissimo. She summons a black magic necromancy skill called Kalasutra. Right out of the dirt, purple skeletal claws and tentacles grab the host, pinning him hard against the rocks. Our boy realizes this is the absolute only chance they're gonna get. Flashing back to his training, he's shaking, muttering about the mid-ranks posture. In the memory, Swan is watching him, not quite getting what he's actually trying to do. The scene shows him grinding alone, lifting that massive sword, one rep at a time. Reading a book, the elf wonders if that muscle-head stone-cutting drill actually pays off in a real fight. Back in the present, his eyes locked on the target. Our guy gets ready. Jaw clenched tight, he calls out loud, "Posture 1." Lifting his blade high, he preps to deliver the final blow while Groton is pinned down. At this exact moment, the mage gets the order to burn all his remaining mana to buff our pro to strike. The kid instantly obeys, dropping the strength buff, Oki, and a blue aura wraps around our warrior's arms. Feeling all that OP power flowing, our MC gets hyped and tells them to take back what they said about him being useless trash. He takes the Enlistment Federation's standard greatsword stance, and with Morris and Swan on his mind, the beast's weakest spot and the sword's strongest point align perfectly in a blinding flash. Our boy claims those two are the real A ranks and announces his technique, basic form, first style. This crazy aura of power is so massive it leaves Swan and the tiny mage completely stunned, jaws dropping. Screaming the attack's name, stone-cleaving strike, he brings the blade down with devastating force. The hit lands perfectly on Grozen's neck, slicing clean through it in a split second, tearing right through the beast's neck. The body drops with a heavy thud, while our proto touches down with his sword gripped tight. Completely exhausted, he takes a deep breath, his face covered in blood and sweat from the insane effort. Swan can barely believe it, whispering in pure shock that they actually pulled it off. That tiny mage is also in shock, stuttering that they just took down Groton, an actual demon. Still panting hard, our boy processes the massive win they just scored through pure teamwork. And this is where it gets good. A glowing item shaped like some weird organ pops out of the monster's remains and drops to the floor. Our MC stiffens up instantly, feeling this weird urge coming from the item. No hesitation, he grabs a dagger and stabs it right into the fallen object. A system tag IDs the drop as Groton's lip, a special organ found only in high-tier white-bodied hosts. Every transcendent standing there feels a primal instinct radiating from that chunk of meat. The urge is crystal clear. They need to eat it, so our boy takes the first bite without a second thought. Swallowing the piece whole right after, he feels something completely bizarre happening. It's explained that the frequency of this unique part makes anyone with the same wavelength mix up smell and taste, triggering a primal drive to just chew and swallow. Energy then travels down his throat and spreads to his body, making his organs tingle so much he feels exactly where it goes. Flashing a smirk, our guy realizes this ain't just regular digestion, it's a straight-up fusion, and he grips his sword hilt with a brand new strength. Right after, he starts swinging that massive blade back and forth with completely ridiculous ease. Swan and the tiny mage drop their jaws, entirely shocked by this sudden flex of power. Stopping his swings, our proto rests the sword on his shoulder, now fully adapted to his new strength. An explanation drops that the superactive proteins he absorbed pushed his strength to the absolute limit his body can handle without breaking. In other words, our boy's combat power just tripled, and since this info isn't in the demonic bestiary, only transcendents who hit the bloodlands know about it. Turning to his squad mates, our guy tells them to listen up close. He explains he has no clue why, but they felt the same urge to eat it, because transcendents share a subconscious frequency, getting a nod from the duo, warning them that the fights will get way more brutal. He notes there are rewards, and whoever gets the prize seems to be chosen by matching the demon part's wavelength. Because of that, our MC sets a rule that any intel on these rewards stays strictly inside their squad, catching the two off guard. Wrapping it up with a smirk, he claims this is their rule to survive until the end, asking if they completely understand. Swan and the tiny mage reply out loud with a solid yes, confirming they got it perfectly. Deep down, the elf thinks our guy really doesn't operate like a regular human. It's revealed he already knew that moving forward, the frontline fights wouldn't be his only problem. War isn't just fought with swords and spears, and right in the middle of the clash, the ugliest and dirtiest thing is always the petty politics of those hiding safely behind a desk. Having already spotted the cowardice and disgust in the chain of command, our proto knows they'll try to steal the Transcendent's achievements. He also felt that the names of everyone who bled on the battlefield would just get wiped from the records. Suddenly, the scene shifts to a flashback of Moai getting jumped by a screaming monster, ready to devour him. Moai just thinks that it's entirely too late. Beaten down on the dirt, he wonders if he's seriously gonna drop dead like this. A happy memory pops up of him asking a buddy out for drinks, but the guy declines since his daughter has a sports event the next day. In another memory, a friend's wife yells at her husband for bringing Moai home, and the guy argues they've been buddies for 20 years so he couldn't just leave him hanging. Snapping back to his final moments, Moai concludes this world is just way too full of sadness. And no one saw that coming. Right at the last second, the monster about to eat him starts disintegrating into thin air. Shocked, he screams while every other demon around him also turns to dust and vanishes from the battlefield. Other transcendents notice the shift, totally confused as they watch the enemies just fading away. A commander then yells that the zone is clear, ordering the troops to drop the defensive barrier. Right after, the demonic swamp covering the zone also starts fading, revealing the original landscape. With that, white cloud trees pop back up, and since their nature opposes demonic energy, it proves the threat is truly gone. Smiling in relief, an elf notes the air instantly got fresh, getting a quick nod from his buddy right beside him. Out of nowhere, footsteps echo as someone approaches the squad. Startled, the soldiers turn their heads right toward the noise. Walking out of the shadows, our boy Swan and the tiny mage step up looking completely victorious. Watching from a distance, the elf leader is shocked, thinking he was already bracing for his squad's total wipeout. He reflects that everyone who survived a Wargle attack before reacted super fast to the ambush, but thanks entirely to our MC and the other transcendents, they managed to pull off this miraculous result. Flashing a slight smile, he thinks they actually did it, realizing those kids pulled off the impossible. Seeing the trio walk up, the entire army erupts into massive cheers to celebrate the win. Completely exhausted, our MC bumps into an elf who shoves him away and complains he's disgusting. Another elf rocking a bun and chewing a twig also mocks them, calling the squad a bunch of brats. Stepping in, an angel-winged woman scolds the elf, asking who gave him permission to chew leaves without a rest order, and commands all units to do a head count. Glancing sideways at her, our boy thinks she's a massive drama queen. He then finishes his thought, telling himself that if he could just step into the bloodlands, he'd easily wipe out all those demons solo. Observing the other soldiers, our guy figures they never faced a white-bodied host directly, and judging by their faces, they clearly chilled in the back during the clash. Realizing the demon threat hasn't truly hit them yet, he notes the tiny mage also has to deal with this huge attitude gap. Just like our Proto suspected, the vibes across the Federation troops were vastly different, showing zero awareness of the severe situation, or that this was a life-or-death moment for everyone. A commander then orders them to start repairing the wall and building temporary barracks for each unit, getting a solid confirmation from the squad, setting up a memorial for the fallen. The final count drops at 11 wounded and 4 completely gone. Aiming her bow, an elf archer reflects that avoiding sacrifices just isn't an option anymore. Suddenly, an arrow strikes the dirt with a sharp sound, unleashing a burst of magic energy. Up on the wall, she warns they need to rush the defense line since she spots Giz demons near the perimeter again, getting a nod from her superior. Chatting nearby, a soldier notes that taking the bloodlands ain't the end, and they gotta get used to constantly pushing forward. Down below, Moai calls Asen to come with him, but Asen replies they're still finishing up the temporary barracks. Moai explains they gotta move materials to buff the positions, but his buddy complains, asking if the kids can't do it since her knees are full of fluid. Grabbing our boy by the arm, Moai claims work gets done fast when a giant moves, asking him to tag along, and our Proto agrees they'll haul the gear to the perimeter. Our MC then hauls a massive stone block on his back, leaving Moai watching in total silence. Completely mind-blown, the veteran can't process the rookie's absolutely cracked strength. Stuttering hard, Moai asks if that isn't heavy, but our guy just casually replies it's manageable. Asen wonders if it's just lighter than it looks, but Moai yells at her, daring her to try lifting it herself. Getting the picture, Asen thinks to herself that this must be what being a transcendent is all about. Staring at the landscape, our Proto spots ruins of the Federation's civilization in Groton's turf, reminding him that before Reversal Day, the whole continent was theirs. Out of nowhere, he hears someone yell, "Attention!" and spins around. Introducing himself as Personnel Officer Norman, a soldier says he's bringing news straight from the enlistment HQ. Asking what Norman wants, Moai warns him they're pretty tied up at the moment. The officer then announces out loud that the deco weapon reveal for the next enlistment batch is officially done. Surprised, the veteran notes that went way faster than usual. Hearing the news, all the soldiers desperately waiting for a direct subordinate get incredibly hyped. Our MC just watches the whole scene play out, deep in thought. Moai then orders Norman to drop the full report, and the officer agrees instantly. Kicking things off, he explains that, according to the sacred weapon reveal at the Jeokyun mountain pass, class. The gauntlet deco weapon, known as Tear of Fury, just had its enlistment slot opened up. Wrapping up with heavy enthusiasm, Norman drops that the spot went straight to a giant. Flashing a satisfied smirk, Moai says a giant is an excellent addition to the squad. Right then, a soldier rocking a samurai bun starts laughing like a total mania. With a wicked smile, he thinks his direct assistant is finally on the way. Clenching his fist, he thinks he has no clue who the rookie is, but the poor guy better start praying right now. Glaring like an absolute psycho, he finishes by promising to show his new subordinate pure hell. Screaming his lungs out, an instructor calls the new rookies to attention, complaining about their weak energy, asking if they think they're on vacation, and demanding they yell twice as loud, getting an obedient response. Our proto figures grouping the giant folks together makes them look seriously massive, so he roars at them to scream 3 times louder, and as the squad answers, he notices a few of them really stand out. First up, he spots recruit number 8, Goliath, a combat sports specialist and Sambo champion. Next is recruit number 1, known as the Iron Man hero, a 5-time decathlon champ and world record holder. But our boy reflects that, in wartime, all these flashy titles are absolutely useless. He then wonders why he, a transcendent, is stuck here instead of fortifying the front line during such a critical moment, but quickly goes back to shouting for attention. Meanwhile, Swan and the tiny mage worry, since the manual says transcendents belong on the front line, and they have no clue how they'll hold the position solo if demons attack. In a flashback, Moai explains to our prota that he needs to act as an instructor for the giant troops, and since the curriculum isn't set, it's a unique gig, and most importantly, it's an order from the higher-ups. Trying to cheer him up, the veteran adds that honestly working at HQ is way easier, so he just needs to hang in there. Our boy realizes that since it's a squad of giants, Command is scared of the responsibility and decided to play it safe by sending someone experienced, so he just says he gets it. Facing away, he mentions that if the order says to go, he's going and there's nothing to do about it, but warns he'll be back. Already heading out, he turns around and calls out for Morris. With a smile, he tells the tiny mage to practice everything he was taught. The little guy replies instantly, a bit clumsy, saying yes, he gets it all. Back in the present, our prota checks a list, hoping his 2 buddies can handle things on their own. He then starts planning the training, looking at the sheet and muttering that, first up, on day 1, our boy then walks up to a recruit and calls her to the front. Complaining right away, the recruit named Goliath asks how many times they gotta yell attention, but our guy just ignores her and calls everyone to attention again. She then turns to the squad, explaining that normally day 1 is for resting, but since the situation changed, they're jumping straight into physicals and skill checks. Shortly after, another instructor chimes in, warning that one of them will score a deco weapon at the mountain pass and get chosen as a new transcendent. Upon hearing the news, the rookies start whispering the words transcendent and deco weapon among themselves. Goliath keeps her speech going, announcing the rest of the troops will be shipped to nearby units, reminding them to hold the pride and honor of the giant race in their hearts. Watching the other instructor, our prota thinks he's doing way better than expected and probably practiced that speech a lot. He then spots a high-ranking Drenane looking fully wiped out, noting the guy is putting in some serious work. The elf, who got transferred to help with meals, cries and complains that giants eat way too much and he feels like he's gonna drop dead. But our boy just holds him steady while the elf panics, screaming that feeding them all takes 22 straight hours of cooking, and he'd rather fight demons to end the misery. Figuring the elf was hiding the second he looked away, our NC watches a food service officer drag the guy off. An order rings out for the recruits to step up in alphabetical order to grab their gear, getting a loud yes in response. Right after, the rookies crowd around a board to check out the physical exam results. Someone mentions that, based on those scores, the transcendent candidates are already narrowed down to just 2 names. A chart compares the recruits' height and weight, showing the average is 271 centimeters and 180 kilos, but Titan and Goliath completely shatter those numbers. For the grip strength test, the average is 192 kilos, but Titan hits 300 and Goliath reaches 282. And in the stone carry test, the average is 15 reps, yet Titan pulls off 52 while Goliath hits 47. Titan, the continental decathlon record holder, figures he and Goliath are pretty much on the exact same level. On the flip side stands Goliath, the Federation's unlimited weight class Sambo champ. Getting super hyped, the other recruits wonder who get picked, mentioning it's their chance to see the match of the century live. A buddy tells Titan his name is getting tossed around, leaving the big guy looking pretty annoyed. Meanwhile, another recruit tells Goliath she can hear her name too, but she just says to drop it. He angrily thinks that he and Goliath are in completely different leagues, and just being mentioned alongside her makes his blood boil. In a flash, Titan turns around and walks off with his crew, entirely brushing off the whole scene. Reaching out his hand, Titan introduces himself to Goliath, saying it's great to meet her. He He asks if she's Goliath's, and the champ just stares him down for a second. Then she gives a quick nod and shakes his hand right back. With a smile, Titan says he's really glad to meet her, but out of nowhere, he grips her hand with this bone-crushing force. The recruit winces in pain, caught entirely off guard by the sudden heavy squeeze. Flashing a smug grin, he asks what it feels like getting beat up for cash. Goliath growls in pure rage, cursing at him under her breath. Arrogantly, Titan jokes that she handles pain pretty well, mocking her with a superior vibe. His buddies pull him away, laughing and asking why he's picking fights on day one. Titan warns them not to mess with him, threatening that if they keep pushing, he'll stomp and crush them all to death. Clapping right back, Goliath says if they were in a cage, he wouldn't even be walking right now. Casually, the big guy laughs it off and drops a dismissive, "Oh, really?" Right after that, he calls his boys and they walk away. One of Goliath's squad mates, Baba, mentions Titan is just a show-off, making cash with circus tricks, adding he's gross and has a super twisted personality. Fangirling hard, Baba turns to her and asks if she can sign his underwear, but Goliath shuts that down instantly. He keeps going, laughing about Titan's triple eyelids, and swears he's gonna body the guy in trench combat. Goliath just listens to the trench combat mention with a dead serious look, but her buddy switches topics, saying all this talk made him hungry for pastries, rambling about an awesome spot he visited with his mom, leaving Goliath thinking he talks way more than he looks. Outside the tent, an instructor asks if anyone needs a uniform size swap, and since no one speaks up, the squad yells a unified no. Our proto mentions inside the fitting room that he thought they'd have sizing issues, but Instructor Brunson explains nobody needed a swap since command focuses heavy on giants and keeps plenty of big sizes in stock. Continuing his point, Brunson notes Moai himself is a giant, and with two celebs joining up, they pushed even harder, getting a quick nod from our boy. He then remembers how humans and dwarves, not being priority troops, always struggled with missing sizes, recalling an officer screaming at them to just wear whatever was left. Later that night, an order rings through the camp, telling all personnel to hit the hay. Inside the tent, the rookies complain the sleeping bags are way too tight and uncomfortable, even after unzipping the foot section. One of the giants grumbles that he just can't fall asleep on the first night. Trying to help, Baba suggests a trick his mom taught him, closing his eyes and counting to 100 to drift off, but the other recruit complains that doing math just gives him a headache and wakes him up more. A squad mate laying nearby watches the scene, thinking Baba is a massive mama's boy and a giant baby for bringing her up non-stop. Out of nowhere, a voice from outside calls for recruit number 1, Titan, telling him to step out. He sits up instantly and replies that he's on it. The other rookie gets annoyed, wondering if this is blatant special treatment. As Titan gets up to leave, that same buddy thinks with pure disgust that the guy is a massive scumbag. He then walks into a separate room. Inside with our prota, the big guy asks what he should write next to the autograph, and our boy just tells him to jot down whatever. The camera focuses on the paper, showing the signature with a dedication saying, "Be happy Moai." Dropping some hard truths, our prota lectures Titan, reminding him he might have been a hero and a celeb outside, but in here, he's just another rookie, getting a quick nod from the giant. Titan then stands tall and swears he'll put the giant race's honor on the line, grinding through training with a true soldier's mindset. Our boy then warns him that this group's transcendent is pretty much already locked in, asking him not to make it too obvious and just try to vibe with the squad. Right after, our prota tells him to wait there and head to the barracks when the regulars arrive, while Titan salutes, thanking him for the advice and shouting, "Unity." Watching the scene, Brunson notes that in person, Titan isn't arrogant at all and actually seems pretty chill, adding the kid has good sense, with our prota agreeing he looks decent. Somewhere else, Swan gets annoyed, wondering if Titan is going to be her junior, mentioning she planned to show him pure hell but decides to scrap that idea instantly. Swan and another soldier complain outside about having to escort rookies off duty, with the elf cursing Moai for making them do it. He then calls from the door, telling recruit number 1 to get up because they're heading to the barracks. Titan stays quiet for a sec, just taking a sip from his mug. Getting impatient, Swan asks what the holdup is and orders him to move, since they're entirely out of time. With a dark look, Titan grumbles about how a bunch of nobodies dare to talk to him like that. The soldier gets shocked and demands to know what he just said, but the big guy just turns his head and denies saying a single thing. The elf doesn't buy it and pushes back, ordering him to repeat what he muttered, and that's where it gets crazy. Titan blows up, leaning right into him and screaming that he didn't say nothing, letting out a roar that entirely spooks them both. Backing up fast, Swan's buddy asks what the heck his problem is and if he lost his mind. Titan's shadow looms right over them as he starts ranting that they have zero power, zero cash, and absolutely nothing. With a look of pure disgust, he calls them mixed breed trash, and to top it off, he glares at them with pure arrogance, asking if they don't even know their place. If you guys enjoyed this, smash that like button for the next part.